Elder Ding and Elder Jiang also shook their heads, and Elder Wan's face turned even gloomier. Nonsense. Take them away. Yun Chuzhou sneered. How can we know if we can do it if we don't try? Is Tianji Peak trying to slander the foreign laborers? If the other 6 peaks find out, they'll laugh at you. You. How dare you? Good. Since you're so stubborn, it'll make you give up. Someone, bring out a basket of snow jade silkworms, Elder Wan said angrily. Hearing Elder Wan's words, a disciple went in and brought out a basket of snow jade silkworms. There were about 20 snow-white snow jade silkworms in the basket, and they were munching on the golden silk mulberry leaves. Elder Wan glared at Yun Chuzhou. Now that the snow jade silkworms have been brought out, tell me, how do we get them to identify the murderer? Yun Chuzhou curled the corners of her lips. The suspects are Huiji and the 3 of us. Then the 4 of us will crouch around the basket. Whoever the snow jade silkworms attack will naturally be the murderer. Although Elder Wan felt that this method was ridiculous, he was now in a rage. He was anxious to prove that Yun Chuzhou was talking nonsense, so he said to Huiji, according to what she said, all of you will crouch around the basket. Even though Huiji felt guilty, he felt that these snow jade silkworms would only mate with each other during mating season. They usually did their own thing, so they wouldn't point fingers and take revenge. Therefore, he crouched beside the bamboo basket with ease. Yun Chuzhou and the other 2 also crouched beside the bamboo basket. Everyone heard Yun Chuzhou say in a crisp voice, repay kindness with kindness, and take revenge with hatred. Little babies, who killed your companions? Just take revenge. Everyone scoffed at this. There was an 80% chance that Yun Chuzhou was mentally ill. Did she really think that these snow jade silkworms would identify the murderer just because she said a few words? Sure enough, the snow jade silkworms inside the bamboo basket were still eating the mulberry leaves with a rustling sound. They did not make any movements. Elder Wan snorted coldly. Just as he was about to let the 4 of them stand up, the snow jade silkworms suddenly raised their heads and sprayed several streams of venom at Huiji. Huiji was caught off guard and was hit by the spray. Moreover, he was squatting, so all the venom was sprayed on his face. Immediately, Huiji screamed in pain and covered his face as he began to roll on the ground. Yun Chuzhou quickly moved the bamboo basket away, afraid that he would accidentally hurt the snow jade silkworms. Elder Ding saw Yun Chuzhou's actions and thought deeply. This little girl seemed to care about the snow jade silkworms, so the missing snow jade silkworms should not have been her doing. Elder Ding did not know that Yun Chuzhou had already treated these snow jade silkworms as her own. This girl was even prepared to pluck the wool. How could she let anything happen to these snow jade silkworms? Everyone was stunned by this unexpected turn of events. For a moment, no one spoke. Only Huiji's continuous screams of pain could be heard. Elder Ding reacted faster. He asked his disciple to quickly take out an antidote pill for Huiji to swallow, and then used cold water to wash his face. However, his injury was too serious. It would take at least a year or so for his face to recover. Yun Chuzhou smiled faintly. Elders, the truth is out now, right? Isn't it time to clear our names? Huiji screamed and said, don't listen to her nonsense. This is an accident. She framed me. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips. Accident? Why don't we do it again? This time, you and the others will squat here and see what the snow jade silkworm will do. When Elder Wan heard Yun Chuzhou's words, for some unknown reason, he actually pulled Huiji over and squatted down beside the bamboo basket. The few of you come over too, I'll verify it. Elder Wan beckoned the few female disciples over. Although the few female disciples were extremely displeased, they did not dare to resist and could only squat down. Yun Chuzhou really wanted to take care of these little bastards, but now was not the time to stir up trouble, so she could only order the snow jade silkworm to attack Huiji. A moment later, Huiji's face was sprayed with a few more streams of venom, and some of the snow jade silkworms even jumped up, wanting to bite Huiji. Elder Wan stood up, gnashing his teeth and interrogating Huiji. "Tell me, what exactly is going on? If you don't answer truthfully, I can only use the soul-searching technique." Elder Wan was obviously trying to scare Huiji. After all, the soul-searching technique was extremely vicious. How could he really use it? However, Huiji was already in unbearable pain from the poison of the snow jade silkworm. How could he endure the pressure from Elder Wan? He immediately cried out and told the truth. The female disciples who were helping Huiji to testify turned pale. They were completely regretful. They originally thought that they could use this matter to expel Yun Chuzhou from the primordial chaos sect. Now, they were afraid that they would not be able to escape punishment. Elder Wan was so angry that he kicked Huiji away. He felt that he had nowhere to put his face. If Yun Chuzhou had not thought of a way to make the snow jade silkworms testify, he would have wronged them. Elder Ding and Elder Jiang also looked embarrassed. For a moment, no one said anything. Yun Chuzhou said in a crisp voice, "Elders, it's getting late. We need to put these snow jade silkworms on the golden mulberry tree. What do you think?" Elder Ding knew that Yun Chuzhou was giving them a way out, so he said, "If that's the case, you guys go ahead and get busy. Don't worry, we will definitely give you three an explanation." Yun Chuzhou nodded. "Elder Ding, it's too serious. We are just handymen. It doesn't matter if we don't give an explanation. As long as we can successfully complete our mission in this month, we will be very satisfied." Elder Ding said a few more words dryly and then asked someone to escort Huiji out of the mulberry garden. "Little Jiu, you scared me. Fortunately, these snow jade silkworms know the good guys and bad guys. Otherwise, we would be in trouble." Yi Bingyu didn't know that Yun Chuzhou could control the demonic insects. Yun Chuzhou said with a smile, "This is called the heavenly net, which is slow and thorough. Good will be rewarded with evil. Alright, let's get to work." At noon, because Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were keeping an eye on the mulberry garden, Yun Chuzhou planned to take a good look around Tianji Peak. Of course, this guy wasn't idle. They couldn't stay in the kitchen all the time. Sooner or later, they had to choose one of the 7 peaks, so it was necessary to know about it beforehand. On the way, Yun Chuzhou heard about the punishment of Huiji and those female disciples. Huiji was immediately expelled from the primordial chaos sect. The female disciples were punished with a year's worth of sect resources for perjury, and they were also punished with a month's worth of reflection. Although Yun Chuzhou felt that the punishment for the female disciples was a little light, it was not bad for Tianji Peak to do this. Some disciples of Tianji Peak saw Yun Chuzhou wandering around. Although they pointed at her, no one dared to say anything in front of Yun Chuzhou. After all, a barefooted person was not afraid of wearing shoes. This Yun Chuzhou was extraordinarily bold. It would not be worth it if she stuck to her. Therefore, Yun Chuzhou was unimpeded on Tianji Peak. Just as the Guai Chao was about to return to the mulberry garden to help collect the snow jade silkworm, the strange grass in its dantian suddenly started to clamor. It was so excited that if Yun Chuzhou didn't do what it wanted, it would rebel. Yun Chuzhou cursed angrily, but she was afraid that the Guai Chao would take control of her body and do something, so she could only follow the Guai Chao's directions. Some disciples of Tianji Peak looked at the direction Yun Chuzhou was going in and gloated. This Yun Chuzhou really wanted to die. How dare she go to the forbidden area? Some people's eyes flickered, and they turned around and left quickly. Yun Chuzhou frowned. Why did it feel more desolate as they walked? Where was the Guai Chao taking her? She saw a lonely courtyard in the distance, surrounded by weeds. Obviously, it had been abandoned for many years. There were 3 simple words written on the plaque of the courtyard, Guai Chao. Yun Chujiu frowned. She knew that there was a Guai Chao in the Chaos Origin sect. Why was there a Guai Chao here? There was also a stone tablet in front of the courtyard. On it, there were 2 big words written in cinnabar, Forbidden Area. Forbidden Area? It was likely that there was danger or some unspeakable secret inside. It was better to leave as soon as possible. Just as Yun Chujiu was about to leave, the strange grass in her dantian attacked. Yun Chujiu sadly found that her feet were approaching Guai Chao step by step. Yun Chujiu cursed angrily, "Go Weiba. Are you acting up again? If I die, don't even think about it." Guai Chao formed its leaves into the shape of a heart and tried to act cute. However, it still controlled its body and gradually approached the courtyard. Yun Chujiu was so angry that she was twitching. "I'll promise you to enter the courtyard. Return the control of your body to me. Otherwise, you'll be like a headless fly and I won't be able to save my life." Guai Chao's leaves swayed. It was obvious that it was thinking about Yun Chujiu's words. In the end, it still returned the control of its body to Yun Chujiu. Yun Chujiu wanted to turn around and run, but she knew Guai Chao's temper. She was afraid that she would not be able to run far before she was brought back by it, so she could only give up the idea of escaping. Yun Chujiu was afraid that there was some kind of formation or mechanism in the House of Reflection. After setting up the spiritual energy shield, she used the elongated rolling pin to push open the courtyard door. She did not know how many years it had been since someone had opened the courtyard door. As soon as she pushed it open, a lot of dust fell. The courtyard was also full of weeds. It was quiet inside, only the sound of the breeze blowing through the weeds. The yard was very spacious, with 1 main room and 6 side rooms. However, the windowsill on the roof was covered with weeds. It was obvious that no one had lived there for many years. Yun Chujiu walked around the yard and did not find anything unusual. Why was this place called Guai Chao? Was it specially used to make people think? While Yun Chujiu was thinking about it, the strange grass began to clamor. Yun Chujiu had no choice but to follow its instructions and use a rolling pin to push away the main room. There was nothing special about the furnishings in the room, only that the utensils were covered in dust. Yun Chujiu pushed open the door to the bedroom. There was only a wooden bed and a desk inside, and there was nothing unusual. "Go Weiba, do you see it? There is nothing here. Are you sick?" Yun Chujiu said to the Guai Chao with her spiritual sense. Guai Chao's leaves trembled. It was obviously guilty. It clearly smelled something delicious, but why was there nothing? When Yun Chujiu saw the Guai Chao's appearance, she knew that he had a guilty conscience. Yun Chujiu did not have the time to curse at Guai Chao. She remembered that when she came here, many disciples had seen her. Someone would definitely report her for breaking into the forbidden area. It was better to leave quickly. Just as Yun Chujiu was about to leave, she heard footsteps coming from outside. Her heart sank. Oh no! No matter what sect she was in, trespassing into a forbidden area was a serious crime. What should she do? Should she hide inside the Great Void Mirror? However, the people from the Hunyuan sect were not stupid. With just a glance, one could tell that the courtyard door had been opened by someone. Moreover, there were her footprints. No matter what, it was impossible to explain clearly. What should she do? Yun Chujiu, come out. You actually dared to trespass into a forbidden area. Wait for your punishment. That's right. Do you want us to go in and catch you? Come out if you know what's good for you. Just as Yun Chujiu was getting anxious, she heard the door of a side room open. Someone said, "What's going on? Why did you trespass into the forbidden area?" "Greetings, Elder Li. I heard someone report that Yun Chujiu trespassed into this place. That's why I came here to check. Since you're here, it means that the information is wrong. Well, leave now. Okay, leave. Don't come near this place in case of danger. Yun Chuzhou saw an old man standing in the middle of the courtyard through the crack in the door, and the disciples of Tianji Peak all left. Yun Chuzhou couldn't figure out Elder Li's intention, so why would he cover for her? While Yun Chuzhou was still confused, she saw Elder Li take out a disc array and activate it. Then, he said, "Little girl, come out, it's okay." Although Yun Chuzhou did not know what Elder Li meant, she had no other choice but to force herself to leave the house. Elder Li's expression was very gentle. "Little girl, why did you come to this forbidden area for no reason?" I just wandered around and got lost. I made a big mistake out of curiosity. Thank you for covering for me." Yun Chuzhou said as she bowed. Elder Li smiled. "You little girl, you're really fearless. I like your character. You're just in time. Come, help me." After Elder Li finished speaking, he walked to the side room and pushed the door open. Yun Chuzhou realized that after the door was pushed open, not a single speck of dust fell. This meant that this side room was often used by people. Yun Chuzhou followed Elder Li into the room. After Elder Li closed the door, he took out another disc array and activated it. The gentle smile on his face turned into a sneer. "Yun Chuzhou, you are really courting death. You actually came here. Do you want to end it yourself or do you want me to kill you? Are you a member of the Divine Devil Hall?" Elder Li saw that Yun Chuzhou's face did not show any signs of panic and said with some surprise, "Why aren't you panicking at all? Don't tell me you know that I am a member of the Divine Devil Hall." "I didn't know before, but now I know." As for why she was not panicking, the reason was very simple. Compared to dealing with those people from before, it was much easier to deal with you. After all, as long as I kill you and burn this place to ashes, no one will be able to trace it back to me. Yun Chuzhou said with a smile, her words were cold to the bone. Elder Li was first stunned, then, he laughed sinisterly. "Smelly girl, you're really arrogant to the extreme. Kill me? You, a 6th level Ling Xian, can kill me? I've already set up an array here, your talismans are useless, die." After hearing Elder Li's words, Yun Chuzhou bared her little white teeth. "Who's dead and who's alive? Why don't we just try and find out? Look at the hidden weapons." As Yun Chuzhou said that, she threw a bag of things at Elder Li. Elder Li raised his spiritual energy barrier and dodged to the side. The chili flew out, but it did not harm Elder Li in the slightest. Elder Li said disdainfully, "Stupid girl, your stupid chili pepper is useless against me. Not only is it useless against me, no one will fall for your trick in the future." Yo, I didn't expect that the people of the Divine Devil Hall would still improve. Let me ask you, as an elder of the Primordial Chaos sect, why are you willing to work for the Divine Devil Hall? Are you out of your mind? Yun Chuzhou dodged Elder Li's attack, she said with a cheeky smile on her face. "Humph. It's my honor to serve my lord. How can ants like you understand? Cut the crap and accept your death." TSK, anyone with a brain knows that the Divine Devil Hall is not a good thing. You actually ruined your bright future and went to them. I advise you to turn back. Shut up. What? Are you moved by my words? Let me tell you, the Divine Devil Hall is like a rabbit's tail that can't grow. The grasshopper after autumn won't be able to jump for more than a few days. You'd better hurry up and repent. You're talking nonsense. How am I talking nonsense? Let's not talk about anything else. I've already jumped 3 continents, but didn't your Divine Devil Hall still fail to kill me? What does this mean? This means that the Divine Devil Hall is not tolerated by Tian Dao. Sooner or later, all of you will be completely finished. You, what do you mean by you? You've already lived for so long in vain. You actually chose a path of no return. You're really stupid to the extreme. If that bullshit master of yours is really so powerful, why didn't he take action and kill all of us? Instead, he let you punks come out and throw your lives away. This can only mean that he is just bluffing. In fact, he is nothing. Elder Li's heart was in a mess because of Yun Chujia's words. His attention was slightly distracted. Yun Chujia's eyes deepened. This was the moment. Yun Chujio raised her hand and all 5 spiritual pets were released. Even the kittens joined the battle. Xiao Hong howled and used her seductive voice. Xiao Mogu used her mycelium to wrap around Elder Li's arms while Xiao He used its claws to wrap around Elder Li's right foot. Xiao Hanio shot a fireball at Elder Li. Little kitten knew that it was too weak, so it climbed onto the roof beam and began to shoot small fireballs at Elder Li's head. It was good enough to burn his hair. Elder Li never dreamed that a person would have so many spiritual pets, so he was a little confused. A certain Joe's spiritual pets were more and more abnormal, so he couldn't get rid of them. How could Yun Chujio let go of such an opportunity to attack? She waved her hands and several spiritual piglets pounced on Elder Li. Unfortunately, although Elder Li's hands were trapped, he had a defensive spiritual device on him, and the spiritual piglets were blocked by the defensive barrier. Moreover, Elder Li had also managed to break free from Xiao Mogu's mycelium. Xiao He was also sent flying with a kick. This was the difference in strength. Stupid girl, I didn't expect you to have so many strange spirit beasts. If I kill you, these will all belong to me. Elder Li was aroused by the ferocity. His eyes were red as he attacked Yun Chujio again. Both sides were fighting. Although Yun Chujio had the advantage in numbers, her strength was not enough. Yun Chujio could only grit her teeth and let Xiao Hanio use the curse technique. Just when Elder Li felt that victory was within his grasp, he suddenly stumbled and the cuties took the opportunity to trap Elder Li again. Yun Chujio's attack was once again blocked by Elder Li's defensive spiritual artifact. Yun Chujio secretly complained in her heart. She did not know what level of spiritual power this Elder Li had, but he was actually so difficult to deal with. Could it be that he really could only hide in the Great Void Mirror? After a series of battles, not only was Yun Chujio injured, even Xiao Hanio and the others were injured to varying degrees. Xiao Mogu's mycelium was also broken many times. Yun Chujio was afraid that the silly cubs' lives were in danger, so she quickly put Xiao Hanio and the other 4 into the spiritual beast bag. However, she forgot about the kitten on the beam. She forgot, but Elder Li did not forget. That damned kitten specifically shot fireballs at his hair. It was really courting death. Elder Li slapped the cat cub on the beam. By the time Yun Chujio wanted to save it, it was already too late. Yun Chujio's heart was filled with pain and regret. How could she have forgotten about the cat cub? With a slap from Elder Li, the cat cub would definitely not survive. The cat cub let out a shrill cry and fell off the beam. Yun Chujio leaped over and caught the cat cub. She saw that the cat cub was almost turned into a specimen by Elder Li's slap. The bones on its body were broken, and the corner of its mouth was full of blood. Yun Chujio quickly took out a pill and stuffed it into the kitten's mouth, hoping to save its life. Elder Li saw that Yun Chujio's attention was on the kitten, so he slapped Yun Chujio again. Before Yun Chujio could react, the kitten in her hand actually jumped up and took the slap on Yun Chujio's behalf. Elder Li used all his strength to hit the kitten. The kitten was sent flying and crashed into the enchantment. Then, it collapsed on the ground and couldn't even scream. Humph. It's just a fire-breathing kitten. You really overestimate yourself. Elder Li said disdainfully. Kitten. Yun Chujio's head buzzed. If the kitten had a chance to survive just now, it wouldn't be able to survive now. Yun Chuzhou walked to the cat cub's side and sniffed. Sure enough, the cat cub was no longer breathing. Yun Chuzhou stood up and looked coldly at Elderly. Elderly pursed his lips. Smelly girl, this is only the beginning. In a while, you will be able to reunite with that cat cub. Yun Chuzhou had originally planned to hide in the Great Void Mirror, but now she was filled with hatred. Today, she had to kill the person in front of her to avenge the cat cub. Elderly was frightened by Yun Chuzhou's cold killing intent and took a few steps back. Then, he slapped Yun Chuzhou in anger. What a joke, why would he be afraid of a stinky girl at the 6th level of the Lingxian realm? Just as Elderly was thinking about it, he realized that Yun Chuzhou's eyes were flashing with purple lightning. How was this possible? How could there be purple lightning in a person's eyes? Elderly felt that his consciousness was starting to lose focus. His eyelids became heavier and heavier. He tried his best to open his eyes, but he couldn't. Yun Chuzhou didn't know why Elderly would suddenly lose focus. Of course, she didn't have the time to think about the reason. She attacked Elderly fiercely and finally, after breaking through the spiritual energy barrier, she used a large kitchen knife to chop off Elderly's head. Yun Chuzhou walked to the front of the kitten dejectedly. Looking at the kitten that had been flattened, tears fell from her eyes. It was all her negligence that caused the kitten to die. If she could put it into the spiritual beast bag in time, it would not have died. Aim. The kitten on the ground let out a weak cry. Yun Chuzhou looked at the kitten on the ground in disbelief. Could it be that the kitten was not dead? Meow, it hurts so much. The kitten whined. Kitten, you're not dead. Yun Chuzhou asked in surprise. Of course I'm not dead. Master, I took a hit for you. You have to reward me with at least 100 dried fish, the kitten said weakly. Yun Chuzhou smiled with tears in her eyes. How is 100 enough? I'll reward you with 200. Although the kitten was not dead, it was severely injured. It would probably not be able to live for a few months. Yun Chuzhou blamed herself. She decided that the next time she was in danger, it was better not to let the kitten out. It was too weak now. Yun Chuzhou put the kitten into the spiritual beast bag and found a jade plate engraved with the pattern of the spider lilies in Elderly's storage ring. She also found 2 array discs that were in operation. Yun Chuzhou stopped the 2 array discs and put them into her storage ring. The thing checked Elderly's storage ring again. When it saw the spiritual stones, it still held back. She let out the Xiao Hanyo and burned Elderly's body into ashes. There was only 1 storage ring left on the ground. Yun Chuzhou walked out of the house, and it was already dark. She rolled her eyes, jumped onto the roof, and looked around. She definitely couldn't take the way she came, because once she went out, she would be discovered. If she wanted to escape, she had to change directions. Yun Chuzhou looked behind Si Guoju. There was a cliff not far behind, and the opposite side of the cliff was very close to the mulberry garden. If she did not return to the dormitory at night, she could deal with it in the mulberry garden for a night. At this moment, the voice transmission talisman began to vibrate. Yun Chuzhou took it out and saw that it was Jin Ji's. She could not help but raise the corners of her mouth. This beauty Jin Ji was quite smart. She was afraid that her identity jade token would leave any traces, so she knew how to use the voice transmission talisman to communicate. The content of Jin Ji's voice transmission talisman was nothing more than worrying about Yun Chuzhou and asking her where she had gone. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes and said to Jin Ji, in order to take better care of the snow jade silkworm, I will be taking care of the snow jade silkworm in the mulberry garden tonight. Do you understand? Jin Ji understood immediately. I understand. If someone wants to ask, Bing Yu and I will say so. After Yun Chuzhou put away the voice transmission talisman, she was about to burn the Sigua residence and escape from the cliff when the Guai Chao started to act again. Seeing this, Yun Chuzhou cursed angrily, "Go Weiba, are you done? If it weren't for you, would we be trapped here? If it weren't for you, would your kitten be seriously injured? What on earth do you want to do?" Go Weiba shook its leaves guiltily, but it still stubbornly signaled Yun Chuzhou to go to the main room. Yun Chuzhou had no choice. She pushed open the door of the main room again and walked in. Yun Chuzhou looked around but still didn't find anything strange. Just as she was about to scold Guai Chao suddenly took control of her body. "Fuck. Go Weiba, just you wait. It's not too late for little Jiu to take revenge. Let's wait and see." After Guai Chao gained control of her body, she walked to the wooden bed and sniffed around like a puppy. Yun Chuzhou was furious. In her heart, Guai Chao had risen to the top of the black ledger. Sooner or later, she would teach this shameless Go Weiba a lesson. After sniffing for a while, Guai Chao excitedly moved the wooden bed away, but she did not find anything unusual. She even moved away the green stone slabs on the ground, but she did not find anything strange. Guai Chao was jumping up and down anxiously. Yun Chuzhou saw that her body was like a monkey whose butt was on fire. She simply could not bear it. "Go Weiba, get out here. I'll help you find it," Yun Chuzhou shouted sternly. Go Weiba leaves trembled. After hesitating for a moment, he decided to return the control of his body to Yun Chuzhou. Yun Chuzhou did not have the time to settle the score with Guai Chao. She knew that Guai Chao must have smelled the fragrance near the bed, so she carefully observed the situation around the bed. There did not seem to be anything unusual, and the green stone slab had already been lifted by the Guai Chao. So where did the fragrance come from? Yun Chuzhou frowned. There must be something strange here. She frowned, and her eyes lit up when she remembered the empty room she had once met in the Hall of the Dead. Yun Chuzhou carefully observed her own shadow. As expected, she found something strange in a corner. Although there was still some distance from the wooden bed, there should be a secret room under it. That thing might have been placed directly under the wooden bed, which was why Guai Chao mistakenly thought that it was under the bed. Yun Chuzhou opened the disc array that she got from Elder Li and threw a sudden crack talisman at the corner. After a loud rumble, a secret door appeared in the corner. Yun Chuzhou put away the formation plate, raised the spiritual energy barrier, and pushed open the secret door. She didn't expect a huge suction force to come from under the secret door. A certain Jiu rolled and crawled into it. Yun Chuzhou fell to the ground with a thud. Fortunately, she was protected by the spiritual energy barrier, so she wasn't injured. Yun Chuzhou stood up and took out the luminous pearl to illuminate. There were several steps leading to the top, and she rolled down from the steps. Yun Chuzhou was very nervous. What was that suction force just now? There were still living things inside. Hey! Which senior is trapped here? This junior is here to save you. This fellow was very shrewd. No matter what, he wanted to gain a good impression first. However, no one returned. Yun Chuzhou was in a tunnel. This fellow could only rely on his courage to continue walking forward. He had no choice but to do so. Guai Chao was acting like a demon in his dantian, and it seemed like he would come out to control his body again. Drip. Drip. Yun Chuzhou frowned. The sound of water. Why was there the sound of water dripping from below? Yun Chuzhou happened to catch a glimpse of the stone walls on both sides of the tunnel, and she could not help but turn pale with fright. There was actually an exquisite mural drawn on the stone walls, but when she saw the contents of the mural, she was so frightened that she sat on the ground. She saw that the mural depicted a woman, whose face was exactly the same as Yun Chuzhou's. The painting depicted a woman fighting with an old man. The old man was elderly. Yun Chujio swallowed her saliva and looked down. The painting below was Yun Chujio holding a kitten and crying. The old man had died not far away. Yun Chujio felt a chill on her back. She looked down and saw Yun Chujio climbing to the roof and talking with a voice transmission talisman. Yun Chujio's hand holding the luminous pearl was trembling. People were always afraid of the unknown. This was too unbelievable. Even if someone had just seen her every move. It was impossible to draw it immediately. Moreover, the murals on it seemed to have been there for a very, very long time. What was going on? Yun Chujio forced herself to calm down. She had already gone through countless storms. Would she be scared by the small murals? Yun Chujio had a flash of inspiration in her mind. She turned the luminous pearl onto the stone wall on the right. The contents on the wall shocked Yun Chujio even more. The luminous pearl in her hand fell to the ground. On the right side of the stone wall, there was a picture of her in the modern era when she was on a mission. The pistol in her hand was emitting a cold light, and there was a corpse on the opposite side. Yun Chujio was stunned for a moment. She picked up the night luminescent pearl and continued to look down. The pictures were all of her in the modern era. Most of them were when she was on a mission, and occasionally, there were pictures of her with Chi. Yun Chujio's eyes could not help but turn red. Suddenly, she turned around and the luminous pearl shone on the stone wall on the left. There was a moment of blank space on the stone wall, and then it turned into the scene of her holding the luminous pearl in the tunnel. Yun Chujio sneered. Although I don't know who you are very good at psychological tactics. You have mapped my thoughts into a mural. This kind of illusion is of a high level. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, the sound of water could not be heard anymore. Obviously, the sound of water was just a supplementary method to let Yun Chujio enter the illusion. Yun Chujio used her spiritual sense to scold the black bead. Every time there was an illusion or something like that, the black bead would warn her. But this time, there was no reaction. Damn it! The black bead shook indifferently. Compared to Go Weiba, it was much better, right? It was normal for it to slack off occasionally, alright? Yun Chujio did not have the time to settle the score with the black bead. She continued to walk forward with the luminous bead in her hand. She had been stuck in the illusion just now, so she had been walking on the same spot. The passage was not too long, and she soon saw a stone hall. There was a huge chain at the four corners of the stone hall, and the place where the chain intersected was actually a huge coffin. The material used for the coffin was extremely exquisite, and there were exquisite engravings on it. When Yun Chujio was looking at it, the Guai Chao in her dantian was so excited that it was about to fly into the sky, and its excited target was the huge coffin. Yun Chujio was already speechless. No matter what, she could still accept the food that Go Weiba ate in the past. After all, it was just some poisonous pills and venom. Now that it actually wanted to eat that huge coffin, it simply couldn't live. The strange grass in her dantian shook its leaves repeatedly, indicating that it did not want to eat the big coffin, but wanted to eat the things in the big coffin. Yun Chujio's heart felt like it was bickering with a dog. The things in the big coffin? What could there be in the coffin? Wasn't that a corpse? It might even be a zombie. Let her die first, she really did not want to live anymore. Just as Yun Chujio was feeling hopeless, the four chains turned into four black flood dragons and pounced on her. Damn! She knew that there must be a big problem. Yun Chujio dodged the attacks of the four black flood dragons in a sorry state. She had no other choice but to use talismans. As for the loud noise that attracted other people, there was nothing she could do. At worst, she could only reveal the sect leader ring. Yun Chujio raised her spiritual energy barrier and threw several explosive talismans at the four black flood dragons. Boom! Boom! Several loud explosions sounded. The 4 black flood dragons were blasted into a bloody mess. As they were too close to each other, Yun Chujio also spat out a mouthful of blood. This fellow was also forced into a helpless situation. This was the worst-case scenario of injuring the enemy by 1,000, but since it was an emergency, it could only be done this way. Yun Chujio's blood dripped onto the green stone slab, turning into 4 bloodlines that quickly spread to the 4 corners of the roof. The 4 chains actually loosened at the same time, and the huge coffin fell to the ground with a bang. At the same time, the 4 black flood dragons also disappeared. Yun Chujio's eyes were wide open. Oh my god, when did her blood become so mysterious? She actually broke all 4 chains. Just as she was shocked, Go Weiba started acting up again, so she could only focus on the coffin. To be honest, Yun Chujio had never thought that a person's coffin could be so exquisite. Previously, she did not see it clearly when she was hanging in the air, but now she saw the exquisite carvings on it. Of course, this fellow knew that the more beautiful something was, the more dangerous it was. Just like poisonous mushrooms, the brighter the color, the stronger the poison. The illusion from before couldn't have come out for no reason. It was most likely caused by the thing inside the coffin. Now, the question was, should she open it or not? According to Yun Chujio's original intention, she naturally didn't want to open it. However, the Guai Chao in her dantian was about to go crazy. Yun Chujio had no choice but to prop up the spiritual energy cover, lengthen the rolling pin, and start to push the coffin lid. Then, yes, she could not push it. Yun Chujio took a closer look and realized that this damn big coffin was actually carved from one body. There was no so-called coffin lid at all. Was there something wrong with it? How could such a seamless coffin contain a corpse? Could it be that there was actually nothing inside? Yun Chujio used the rolling pin to knock on it. There was a clanging sound coming from inside. It was really hollow inside. How could she put something inside without a lid? Guai Chao started to play tricks again. Yun Chujio was furious. Go Weiba. I'm warning you. You took control of my body without my consent just now. I've already spared you once. If you play tricks again, I won't hold back. Don't think that I can't do anything to you. You're not the only one in your dantian. Little Jingjing and the glass ball won't sit idly by and do nothing. Do as you see fit. Guai Chao's leaves trembled. After weighing the pros and cons, it thought of debeiming, that evil star. It was terrified. Anyway, this little girl did not say that she would not help it take out the things inside. It would just have to wait a little longer. After Yun Chujio suppressed the Guai Chao, she began to carefully examine the large coffin in front of her. She felt that there must be an entrance to this coffin. Otherwise, how would the things inside go in? Yun Chujio observed for a long time and finally thought of a good idea. She took out a basin of water from her storage ring and poured it on the coffin. As expected, she found a small eye that was as small as a needle's nose. Yun Chujio's discovery not only did not solve the problem, but she was even more confused. How did the thing go in with such a small eye? Hey, is there anything alive in there? If you don't want to be blown to death by me, come out now. Otherwise, I'm going to make a move. Yun Chujio shouted a few times, but there was no movement inside. Yun Chujio gritted her teeth and was about to use the talisman to blow up the coffin, but Guai Chao didn't want to do it anymore. The meaning was obvious. If the coffin was blown up, the thing inside would be destroyed. Yun Chujio had no choice but to try her best. She took out a large kitchen knife and began to cut the large coffin. It was indeed a large kitchen knife that was necessary for traveling. It really did move. Yun Chujio sniffed. Because the large coffin had been cut, the wood at the break gave off an intoxicating fragrance. She did not know what kind of wood it was, but it was so magical. If it was made into a fragrance bag, it would definitely sell for a good price. She would be rich. Yun Chuzhou became more and more curious about what was inside the coffin. To be able to use such a precious wood to make a coffin, what exactly was inside? 10,000-year-old dumpling? Or was it something like a crystal corpse? Although the large kitchen knife could move the large coffin, it was also very laborious. Yun Chuzhou hacked for a long time before she finally made a hole. Yun Chuzhou could not wait to look inside the coffin. However, the thing inside was not a red-furred dumpling or a crystal corpse. Yun Chuzhou rubbed her eyes. She really could not believe what she saw. There was actually a blade of grass inside. Before Yun Chuzhou could take a closer look, the Guai Chao had already taken control of her body. The Guai Chao easily plucked the blade of grass, chewed it, and swallowed it. The Guai Chao's wish was fulfilled. It passed the control of its body to Yun Chuzhou, and then it began to form the shape of a heart to act cute. Yun Chuzhou was so angry that she gritted her teeth, but there was nothing she could do. Unless it was a very important time, the great void mirror and the black bead would only watch coldly from the side. They would not stop the Guai Chao's actions. Yun Chuzhou saw that the Guai Chao had already eaten the grass, so she had no choice but to put the big coffin and the 4 chains into her storage ring. No matter what, these things should be treasures. Yun Chuzhou suddenly thought of something. The grass that was eaten by the Guai Chao had first entered the coffin in the form of a seed. Perhaps the coffin was just a trunk at that time. The plant grew slowly on the nourishment of the tree trunk. Later, the tree trunk was discovered and made into a coffin without a lid. However, who did this? And for what? To reflect on the past. This place would not become a forbidden area for no reason, and elderly would not appear here for no reason. Could it be related to the plant? Also, who was the one who created the illusion? Perhaps it was because this place was set up with an illusion. Also, why did the 4 chains break after her blood seeped into the stone slab? Just as Yun Chuzhou was puzzled, the stone hall began to tremble. Rocks began to roll down from above her head. Oh no, this place was about to collapse. Yun Chuzhou did not have time to think about anything else and ran desperately towards the stone steps. However, it was too late. Huge rocks began to fall from the top of her head. Yun Chuzhou gritted her teeth. She could only try her best. She took out a bunch of explosive talismans and threw them into the distance. Her idea was very simple. From the distance, she estimated that this place should not be too far from the surface of the earth. After the place collapsed, she could exit through the gap. Things went unexpectedly smoothly. A corner of the stone hall collapsed. Yun Chuzhou could see the starry sky outside. She did not care much and jumped out from the gap. A certain Zhou was once again in a tragedy. Damn it! Who could tell her why she fell down the cliff after jumping out of the hole? A certain Zhou had spent a lot of effort to fix herself on the cliff wall. However, it was also good. Anyway, she had originally planned to go to the mulberry garden on the other side of the cliff. However, she did not have time to set the Sigua residence on fire. She did not know if it would leave a disaster behind. Just as Yun Chuzhou was thinking about it, she noticed that the stone wall where she was standing started to tremble. Damn! Would the cliff collapse as well? Yun Chuzhou did not dare to be careless. She did not care about any future trouble, so she accelerated and climbed down the cliff. Just as she landed at the bottom of the cliff started to collapse. This fellow wanted to cry, but he had no tears. He quickly climbed up to the other side of the cliff. The rumbling sounds kept coming. Yun Chuzhou caught a glimpse of a signboard. There were 3 bright words on it, Si Gua Ju. Yun Chujo was stunned at first, then she grinned. It seemed that the area where Sigua lived had also collapsed. Even if someone went down the cliff, they would not be able to find anything. This time, she did not have to worry about being discovered. This fellow happily began to climb up the cliff. She wanted to sneak into the mulberry garden before anyone came and climbed up the cliff. As for the fact that someone had seen her walking towards the forbidden area during the day, since no one had caught her in the act, she just had to deny it. After this fellow climbed up the cliff, only then did she realize that, fuck. She was simply too stupid. Since there was no ban on flying down here, why didn't she just sit on the chopping board and fly up? However, this fellow could also be considered to have accidentally bumped into her. Because she did not use her spiritual power, she was not discovered by the higher-ups of the Chaos Origins sect who had rushed over one after another. Yun Chujo hurriedly slipped into the mulberry garden and changed into a set of clothes in the small room next to the silkworm room. Only then did she let out a long sigh of relief. No matter what, it was still considered to have been smooth sailing this time. She had gotten rid of Elder Li and even obtained a large coffin. Guai Chao had also gotten what she wanted, and everyone was happy. As she had not eaten at night, this fellow took out some food and casually ate a bit. Not long after she lay on the bed, there was a knock on the door outside the mulberry garden. Open the door. Open the door. Yun Chujo blinked her eyes and messed up her hair and clothes. Only then did she open the door. There was an old man and several disciples standing at the door. Although Yun Chujo did not know this old man, she knew the clothes of those disciples. They were actually law enforcement disciples. Yun Chujo showed a puzzled expression. Elder, why are you here so late at night? By the way, I heard a loud noise just now. Did something happen? Did the earth dragon turn over? Do you need to move the snow jade silkworm? The old man sized up Yun Chujo. He saw that her eyes were hazy, her hair was messy, and her clothes were not neat. It was obvious that she had just woken up from her sleep. Nothing much. Is there anything unusual about the snow jade silkworm? The old man asked without batting an eyelid. I went to take a look just now and was a little restless. I comforted her a little better. Fortunately, I stayed here on duty today. Otherwise, I was really worried that the snow jade silkworms would be scared out of their wits. Elder, what exactly happened? If I wasn't worried about the snow jade silkworms, I would have gone out to take a look. Yun Chujia's eyes flashed with a strong light of gossip, she stretched her neck and wanted to look outside. The old man showed an impatient expression. Nothing happened. Just take good care of the mulberry garden. After saying that, the old man left in a hurry with his disciples. Yun Chujo muttered to herself, what exactly happened? Forget it, I'll go and take a look at the snow jade silkworm. I don't want to be scared out of my wits and end up in a cocoon. As she spoke, Yun Chujo ran quickly to the silkworm room. From the corner of her eye, she caught a glimpse of a black shadow flashing past. Yun Chujo pursed her lips. Playing this game with her? She was really too inexperienced. It seemed that this round was over. It was better to be careful in the future. Perhaps someone had already set their eyes on her. Yun Chujo pushed open the door of the silkworm room. She saw that the snow jade silkworms were slightly restless. Yun Chujo comforted them a few times. After seeing that they had regained their calm, she returned to her own room. As the people outside turned upside down, a certain Jiao had a good sleep. A certain Jiao was sleeping soundly when the kitten's crying voice sounded in her mind, Master, help. Help. Yun Chujo jumped up from the bed in shock and sent her spiritual sense into the spiritual beast bag. She thought that Xiao Hanio had been bullied by the little black bird and the others again, so she was very angry. These prodigals. Xiao Hanio had suffered such serious injuries, but they still bullied it. They were really too insensible. However, after sending her spiritual sense in, she found that it was not the case at all. Master, there's something on my head. I'm most likely going to die. The kitten cried. Yun Chujio took a closer look and saw that there was a small horn growing out of the kitten's head. It looked quite cute. Yun Chujio recalled for a moment. The fire-breathing cat did not seem to have horns on its head, and the fire-eating Xiao did not have horns either. However, perhaps this was a good thing. It was possible that this near-death experience had triggered the kitten's ancestral bloodline. Yun Chujio explained her guess, and the kitten immediately stopped whining. It seemed that most of the injuries on its body had healed. Ever since it became Yun Chujio's spiritual pet, it had felt a little inferior. It felt that it did not have the noble bloodline of Xiao Hanio and Xiao Hanio. Now that it heard that it had the possibility of awakening its ancestral bloodline, one could imagine the excitement in its heart. After Yun Chujio comforted the kitten and withdrew her spiritual sense, Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu arrived. Seeing that Yun Chujio was safe and sound, the two of them did not ask any further questions. The three of them chatted for a while and then started to work. Yun Chujio saw that the snow silkworms were still a little restless. However, after being threatened by Yun Chujio once, they did not dare to attack the three of them. Yun Chujio could not help but feel a little puzzled. These snow silkworms had food, drinks, and people to serve them. Why were they so agitated? Yun Chujio simply contracted a snow jade silkworm to ask for the reason. After learning the reason, Yun Chujio could not help but feel a little confused. The reason why the snow jade silkworms were so agitated was because of their habits. The snow jade silkworms were different from the silkworms of the secular world. After they formed a cocoon, they would not turn into pupae, nor would they turn into moths. After breaking out of the cocoon, they would still be in the form of silkworms. The following period of time was very important for the snow jade silkworms, and that was to reproduce. Then, there was a problem. In the wild, the mating of snow jade silkworms was controlled by the silkworm king. The silkworm king would choose the most suitable female silkworm to mate with and then allocate the remaining females to other male silkworms. Due to the supreme authority of the silkworm king, the silkworms would not have any objections and the mating could proceed according to the schedule. However, ever since these snow jade silkworms were tamed, there was no silkworm king among them. Therefore, every mating period was a bloodbath. Male silkworms would bite each other in order to compete for the right to mate. By the time the winner was decided, more than half of the mating period had passed. Therefore, only a few females would become pregnant in the end. Yun Chujio finally understood why Elder Jiang had said that there would be dozens of new silkworms. So that was the reason. Yun Chujio touched her chin. Wouldn't it be easier without the king of silkworms? She would just be the king of silkworms. When the mating period came, she would pair them up. Let's see which one of them would dare to resist. When the snow jade silkworms heard Yun Chujio's words, their anxiety was swept away, and they began to eat in peace, waiting for their cocoons to form. A month passed in the blink of an eye. During this time, Elder Jiang and the other two came to check on the silkworms. When they saw that the snow jade silkworms were being fed until they were chubby, they were very satisfied. They didn't take the unhappiness from before to heart. Before the three of them left, Yun Chujio said with a smile, "Elders, please wait. I have something to report." Elder Jiang and the other two stopped in their tracks and looked at Yun Chujio in confusion. "What's the matter?" "Elders, I've heard that the reproduction of these snow jade silkworms isn't going smoothly every time. They only lay a few dozen eggs. I think that this might be related to the fighting during their mating period. Therefore, I have an idea that might increase their spawning rate. I would like to consult the 3 elders. Then, Yun Chuzhou told them her idea. Elder Jiang and the other 2 frowned. The snow jade silkworms during mating were extremely irritable and could easily attack humans. So for many years, these snow jade silkworms had been mating freely. Was it really possible to interfere with them manually? Yun Chuzhou, whether your idea is feasible or not is another matter. You should know that the snow jade silkworms during mating are extremely irritable. Aren't you afraid of being attacked by them? Elder Ding asked. I know, but I am willing to take the risk to do my part for the sect, Yun Chuzhou said respectfully. The 3 elders looked at each other. They did not expect that although this little girl had a sharp tongue, she was still an innocent child. She was willing to take the risk to contribute to the sect. It was really not bad. Alright, since you are mentally prepared, then give it a try. Yun Chuzhou rubbed her hands and said, well, I have a presumptuous request. Can you give us more contribution points? The 3 elders were stunned and then nodded with a smile. Of course. When the time comes, we will pay you double the contribution points. Yun Chuzhou shook her head. Elders, as the saying goes, you will not be rewarded for doing nothing. If we fail, how can we have the face to ask for contribution points? How about this, during the normal mating period, they can breed about 60 new silkworms. If we hatch 1 more, we will be rewarded with 5 contribution points each. What do you think? Elder Jiang and the other 2 discussed and nodded in agreement. After all, the value of 1 snow jade silkworm was much higher than 5 contribution points. Besides, although Yun Chuzhou said that there was a nose and an eye, how could those snow jade silkworms listen to her arrangement? Not to mention a few more, it was already good enough to have a lot of them. Very soon, the snow jade silkworms were still spinning their cocoons. It was only then that Yun Chuzhou realized that 1 silkworm could only spin a cocoon. Her plan of plucking the sheep's wool was ruined. This fellow felt that she had made a loss in her business and sighed all day long. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were speechless and could not be bothered with her. 5 days later, the snow jade silkworms began to break out of their cocoons one after another. Matchmaker Jiu was online. Jin Ji was very busy. Although the snow jade silkworms were anxious, they didn't dare to attack her. They had no choice but to start mating according to her arrangements. After the 3-day mating period, the female silkworms began to lay eggs. Elder Jiang and the other 2 heard that the young silkworms had hatched and ran over to check. Not bad, not bad. There are 70 young silkworms in these 2 baskets. When the time comes, we will reward each of you with 50 contribution points. Elders, don't worry, I still have more. Yun Chuzhou took out 2 more baskets from the silkworm room. What? There are 80 new silkworms. The 3 elders couldn't believe their eyes. Elders, this is only a part. There are more inside. Don't worry, we will bring them out now. 1 basket, 2 baskets. Elder Jiang and the other 2 pinched themselves hard. They felt as if they were in a dream. Was this snow jade silkworm crazy? How could it produce so many little silkworms this time? Chapter 26:47 7,500 contribution points 1. While Elder Jiang and the other 2 were still in a daze, Yun Chuzhou counted with her fingers and said, Elders, we have counted them all. There is a total of 1,560 new silkworms. If we remove the base figure of 60, there is an additional 1,500 silkworms. Each of them has 5 contribution points. You 3 can just give each of us 7,500 contribution points. What the hell was that? 7,500 contribution points. Elder Jiang and the other 2 elders' heads were buzzing. Although the number of serpents that they had produced was indeed not small, it was impossible to reward each of them with 7,500 contribution points at once. The other disciples who had fought with their lives did not have so many contribution points. If this news were to spread, wouldn't it cause a stir? That Yun Chuzhou. Yes, we did say that one serpents will reward you with 5 contribution points, but this 7,500 contribution points is really too much. Elder Ding said with some embarrassment. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes. Too much. That's easy. How much do you think it is? The 3 elders looked at each other. They did not expect Yun Chuzhou to be so easy to talk to. The 3 of them discussed for a while. We can't let you work for nothing. How about this? Each of you will be rewarded with an additional 1,000 contribution points. What do you think? Yun Chuzhou nodded. No problem. 1,000 contribution points means 200 new silkworms. We will just kill all the extra silkworms. Come and read on our website Wuxia World site. Thanks. As Yun Chuzhou said this, she was about to destroy the silkworms. The 3 elders were anxious and angry. Stop. Yun Chuzhou, don't be too impudent. Yun Chuzhou sneered. 3 elders, as the saying goes, a promise must be kept. Did I force you to agree to 5 contribution points for a new silkworm? Moreover, this is not a one-time deal. In 3 months, some snow jade silkworms will have their mating period again. Elder Jiang and the other 2 had never met such a bold and shameless servant before. They were furious, but they had to admit that what Yun Chuzhou said made sense. It was true that they had broken their promise first, and the snow jade silkworms would have their mating period in 3 months. If they could breed so many snow jade silkworms, their Tianji Peak's income would be huge. After weighing the options, the 3 of them gritted their teeth and said, "All right, then I'll reward each of you with 7,500 contribution points." Yun Chuzhou immediately smiled and said, "That's right. One must be honest when doing business. These snow jade silkworms are very docile after mating period. Please find someone else to take charge of the mulberry garden. Well, go back to the kitchen now. You guys can stay in the mulberry garden. I'll go to the General Affairs office and tell them." Elder Jiang was still counting on Yun Chuzhou and the others to take care of the next mating of the snow jade silkworms. No need to trouble you. Well, work part-time when the snow jade silkworms mate. Please give us your contribution points as soon as possible. Yun Chuzhou had been tired of living in the mulberry garden for a long time. Now that she had contribution points, what was she waiting for? Elder Jiang and the other 2 could only transfer their contribution points to Yun Chuzhou and the other 2. They would report to the Peak Master of Tianji Peak and make up for it later. Yun Chuzhou and the other 2 left the mulberry garden happily after the new servant started working. The 3 of them didn't go back to the kitchen. Who would be willing to light a fire for fun? A certain Jiao had plenty of spirit stones anyway, so she would continue to hire the 4 people. When the 3 of them arrived at the library, a certain Jiao and the other 2 placed their identity jade plates in front of the guard disciple. The disciple curled his lips in disdain. He remembered very clearly that it was these 3 handymen who had come to read the book without a single contribution point. This time, it was estimated that they would only have a few dozen contribution points at most. That disciple did not even look at the 3 people's identity jade plates. He said with disdain, "If you want to read in the library, you need at least 100 contribution points to be qualified. Do you have any? Didn't I tell you to read the complete works of the Primordial Chaos sect? You can't be illiterate, right?" Some disciples behind Yun Chuzhou shouted, "Seriously, if you don't have any contribution points, hurry up and get out of the way. Don't waste our time." That's right, what are the 3 odd job workers reading? Can they understand it? Isn't this Yun Chuzhou? I heard that she accepted the mission to raise snow jade silkworms. It seems that the reward is 100 contribution points. When the disciple guarding the library heard that, he curled his lips and picked up Yun Chujia's identity jade plate to swipe on the groove. Then, he was dumbfounded when he saw the number displayed on it. When the people in the queue saw that the disciple was stunned and did not say anything, they urged impatiently, "Hey, Lu Shan, can you hurry up? If you have enough contribution points, hurry up and let them go. If you don't have enough, hurry up and chase them away. What are you dawdling for?" Lu Shan ignored everyone's urging. After he took down Yun Chujia's identity jade plate, he stuck Jin Ji and Yi Binjia's identity jade plates on it and looked at them. Then, he was completely dumbfounded. After a while, he jumped up and pointed at Yun Chujio. You, tell me, what underhanded method did you use to turn your contribution points into 7,500 contribution points?" When the people waiting in line heard Lu Shan's words, they exploded. 7,500 contribution points. What a joke! Mo Han, who was ranked first among the disciples, only had 5,000 contribution points, and that was because he often took on missions that were difficult to complete. How could Yun Chujio and the other two have 7,500 contribution points? There must have been a mistake when Tianji Peak distributed the contribution points, which was why they were able to take such a huge advantage. This was too unfair. No, they had to give an explanation. One of the Tianji Peak disciples didn't have time to wait in line and immediately went to report to the elders of Tianji Peak. Yun Chujio glanced at Lu Shan and said, "How I got these 7,500 contribution points has nothing to do with you, right? I'm just asking if you have 100 contribution points. If you have enough, cut the crap and let us in." Lu Shan was slapped. Just you wait. The truth will come out sooner or later. Just you wait to be expelled from the Chaos Origin sect. Yun Chujio looked at Lu Shan as if he was an idiot. Then, she picked up the identity jade token and the jade token to enter the library and entered the library. The people who were waiting in line didn't have the mood to enter the library anymore. They were all waiting for the news of the Tianji Peak disciples. There must be something wrong here. They had only entered the sect less than 2 months ago, and it was impossible for them to get so many contribution points. Besides, the disciples who had been in the sect for more than 100 years didn't have so many contribution points, okay? While everyone was looking forward to it, a Tianji Peak disciple ran over while panting. Their contribution points are real. They got them by raising snow jade silkworms. What? What a joke. Didn't they only get 100 contribution points by raising snow jade silkworms? Could it be that the elders of Tianji Peak didn't know how to count? The disciple of Tianji Peak told them the whole story, and everyone was stunned for a while. Then, they looked at each other, thinking that the elders of Tianji Peak were most likely crazy. No matter how precious the snow jade silkworm was, it shouldn't have rewarded Yun Chujio and the others with so many contribution points. Spending dozens of days to raise the insects and obtaining 7,500 contribution points. How could people like them, who came and went in the wind and rain, barely survive and earn a few hundred contribution points? How could they live? This was too unfair. Everyone realized something else. The contribution points of the disciples of the Hunyuan sect were displayed on the merit monument in real time. Mo Han was originally ranked first, but wasn't she replaced by Yun Chujio and the other two? 3 odd job workers from the big kitchen stepped on the heads of all the disciples. This was too ironic. Let me tell you, the good days of those 3 odd job workers have come to an end. The merit monument only shows the names of the top 100 disciples. Now that they've been pushed up by 3 odd job workers, someone will definitely find trouble with them. That's right. The merit tablet has always been under the rule of true disciples and inner disciples. There must be someone who dislikes them. Let's just wait for a good show. Hey, what are you doing running so fast? I'm going to see if Mulberry Garden is still hiring. Yun Chujio didn't know what was going on outside. At this moment, she was so shocked by the library of the Primordial Chaos sect that she couldn't speak. In her impression, the library was just rows and rows of bookshelves with jade slips and sheepskin books on them. However, who could tell her why the books in the library of the Primordial Chaos sect were floating in the air? Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were also dumbfounded. These books were floating in the air. How could they see them? Do we have to jump up and catch them ourselves? The three of them were at a loss. They could only watch the others' movements from the side. After watching for a while, they finally understood that as long as they injected their spiritual sense into the jade token in their hands, they would be able to see the classification inside. After choosing a certain book, that book would fall into the hands of those who needed it. I.O. It was actually so advanced. A certain Jiu gave it a try and immediately felt that it was very interesting. Hence, this idiot began to change books non-stop. Everyone saw that one book after another fell into a certain Jiu's hands. After being flipped through a few times, she changed into a new book. Everyone despised her. She was really a country bumpkin who had not seen the world before. A certain Jiu discovered that the books on this level were not of much help to her. They were all low-level pill recipes and talisman books. Fortunately, there were some miscellaneous books that were quite interesting. The things recorded on them were all strange things. Yun Chujio found a record in a book. It was somewhat similar to the large coffin that she had obtained. It was rumored that there was a strange tree in ancient times. It was called citron. Citron had a strange fragrance and was a kind of precious spice. After making the citron into a coffin, the person inside would never decay. This was not too strange because coffins made of some materials made of 10,000-year-old ice also had this effect. The more strange thing about the citron-made coffin was, Yun Chujio almost fainted from anger when she saw this. The words at the back of the coffin had become blurry and nothing could be seen anymore. Normally, the writing materials used in this kind of sheepskin ancient scroll would not be affected for hundreds of thousands of years. How could it be affected here? Yun Chujio did not give up and flipped through the pages. The words at the back had all been affected. She was so angry that she was twitching. It was not easy for her to find a valuable book, but it turned out to be like this. No matter what, this meant that there was something extraordinary about the coffin. She just had to keep it for now. Little Jiu, it's getting late. Let's go out. Jin Ji said. Okay, you two go back. I won't be going back tonight, Yun Chujio said casually as she was engrossed in reading a secret book. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were both a little tired. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, they nodded and left. There were fewer and fewer people in the library. Although the library did not prohibit people from staying overnight, most people would leave at night. There were night pearls hanging on the roof of the library, so it was bright even at night. Yun Chujio ate a few meat buns, took out a recliner, and continued to read. At midnight, Yun Chujio yawned and took out a bed from her storage ring. She lay on it and slept soundly. What this guy didn't know was that while she was sleeping soundly, the book that she had read previously, which was covered in goatskin, slipped into her storage ring. If she had seen it, she would have been stunned. Only the owner's spiritual sense could drive the storage ring to pick up items. It was strange that the book could slip into it by itself. The next morning, Yun Chujio continued to read. This guy wanted to see if there were any clues about the Guai Chao. He also wanted to find out where there was lightning, or how to absorb more lightning. When it was close to noon, the sound transmission talisman in the storage ring vibrated. Jin Ji's voice came from it, Little Jiu, think of something. The law enforcement said that we went AWOL. They went to the library to catch you. A faint light flashed in Yin Chujia's eyes. AWOL? It was probably a red-eyed disease, right? Yun Chuzhou thought for a while and then left the library. Coincidentally, a few disciples of the law enforcement office had already arrived in front of the library. After seeing Yun Chuzhou, they said coldly, "Yun Chuzhou, someone reported that you went AWOL. Come with us to the law enforcement office." Yun Chuzhou nodded lightly. "After I go through the procedures to leave the library, I'll go with you." The law enforcement disciples did not expect Yun Chuzhou to be so cooperative. They were all a little surprised. After Yun Chuzhou finished the procedures, she said, "Let's go. I haven't been to the law enforcement office yet. I'll go and recognize the door. I guess I'll have to go often in the future." The disciples of the law enforcement office looked at each other. Was Yun Chuzhou scared out of her mind? What did she mean by go there often? Who would be willing to go to the law enforcement office for no reason? Perhaps the disciples of the primordial chaos sect were too bored and had nothing better to do. Soon, many disciples gathered to watch the show. They followed Yun Chuzhou and the others and arrived at the law enforcement office of Dubhe Peak in a mighty manner. Although the other 6 peaks also had their own law enforcement office, the Dubhe Peak's law enforcement office was the most authoritative and the most powerful. Yun Chuzhou could not help but sneer in her heart. The law enforcement office was sent out just because he left his post without permission. She really had a lot of face. Under normal circumstances, if a handyman left his post without permission, the law enforcement office could handle it. It was nothing more than punishing some sect's resources and transferring them away from their posts. Why would there be a need for the law enforcement office? Moreover, it was the law enforcement department of Dubhe Peak. The law enforcement process of the law enforcement department was public. Therefore, Yun Chuzhou was brought to a small square in the law enforcement department. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were already brought here. Initially, the two of them were a little anxious and uneasy. However, when they saw Yun Chuzhia's calm appearance, their emotions inexplicably relaxed. As long as Yun Chuzhou was here, they felt that they had a backbone. Yun Chuzhou, Jin Ji, Yi Bingyu, you were originally servants in the big kitchen, but you went to Tianji Peak's mulberry garden to earn contribution points. Do you know your crime? A law-enforcing steward said with a gloomy face. No, Yun Chuzhou said in a crisp voice. Everyone was dumbfounded. How could she say no so righteously? Did she really not know, or was she stubbornly resisting? The law enforcement manager slammed the table. How dare you? All of you are leaving your posts without permission. According to the Academy's rules, those who leave their posts without permission will be punished by forfeiting the sect's resources for 3 years, and they will have to reflect on their actions for half a year. In addition, all the contribution points that you have received will be forfeited. Some of the onlookers were gloating, some were sighing, and most of them were just watching the show. Yun Chuzhou had caused a lot of trouble during the entrance test, and now she had committed a crime less than 2 months after entering the sect. She was really a troublemaker. However, the evidence was conclusive. She could not refute it even if she wanted to. She could only wait to think about it. There are indeed records of desertion in the 105 rules of the sect. However, there are a few more detailed rules behind it. Could it be that this steward did not see it? That's right. We did go to Mulberry Garden to raise snow jade silkworms, but did we delay the work in the big kitchen? According to the sect rules, if we didn't cause any losses, we could just give a verbal warning and forfeit half a year's worth of supplies. I don't know why you're punishing us so severely. Could it be that you're jealous because we've received so many contribution points? If that's the case, then I advise you to stop being a law enforcement disciple and just go to the Mulberry Garden to raise snow jade silkworms. However, I'm afraid that snow jade silkworms won't like people like you. After all, snow jade silkworms only like people with a good heart. Regardless of whether it was the crowd or the law enforcement manager, never in their wildest dreams did they expect that there would be a handyman who dared to contradict the law enforcement manager so boldly when he was being punished. Moreover, although she didn't point at the manager's nose and scold him, her words clearly implied that he had a vicious heart. Everyone felt that although what Yun Chujio said made sense and they indeed did not deserve such a heavy punishment, the law enforcement office had plenty of ways to deal with the 3 odd job workers, so why go against them head-on? There would be a lot of trouble in the future. The manager of the law enforcement office was so angry that his face turned red. He slammed the table hard. You dare to contradict me like this? You're really, really guilty. TSK, which rule says that you are superior as a manager of the law enforcement office? Don't tell me that you wronged us and we can only accept it. Looking at your behavior, you must have done a lot of wrong cases in the past, right? Don't tell me that you have done a lot of immoral things by using your official position for personal gain, using your official position for personal revenge. This time, you are targeting the 3 of us. Did you also receive some benefits from someone? Yun Chujio said with a cold smile. Boom! The crowd instantly exploded. They had never heard of Yun Chujio's tone before. Even if they had some opinions about the law enforcement department's tyranny, they could only keep it in their hearts. How could they dare to point it out in front of them? It had to be said that this Yun Chujio was too bold. Was she not planning well? The law enforcement manager's face alternated between green and white, feeling guilty and angry. He shouted, "Nonsense! Men, escort them to the number 18 meditation cave immediately." Everyone cried out in surprise. There were different levels of meditation caves in the Chaos Origin sect. The higher the number of meditation caves, the more severe the punishment inside. If Yun Chujio and the others went to the number 18 meditation cave, not to mention half a year, they would probably lose their lives in half a day. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. TSK, are you angry from embarrassment? You actually used public office to take revenge in front of so many people. It shows that you must have done such things in the past. Yun Chujio did not have a trace of fear on her face, she was still as calm as ever. The law enforcement manager was so angry that he stomped his feet. What are you waiting for? Quickly take them away. Seeing this, the law enforcement disciples were about to escort Yun Chujio and the other 2 to the cave of reflection when they saw Yun Chujio coldly say, "If any of you dare to touch me, I will kill him. If you don't believe me, try." The law enforcement disciples were shocked by the murderous aura on Yun Chujio's body. Then, they heard Yun Chujio continue, "That manager, did you forget something very important? Even if what you said makes sense, we went AWOL, but we received our mission from the General Affairs Department. The General Affairs Department didn't stop us, which means that they acquiesced. Also, Elder Jiang, Elder Ding, and Elder Wan of Tianji Peak have been communicating with us amicably. They didn't raise any objections, and they even rewarded us with 7,500 contribution points. According to what you said, should we punish them as well? In the end, we have made a huge contribution to Tianji Peak. I don't believe that Tianji Peak will ignore us. Wouldn't that be ungrateful? Senior brothers and sisters of Tianji Peak, don't you agree?" Of course, there were people from Tianji Peak in the crowd. When they heard Yun Chujio's question, they didn't know whether to admit it or not. All of them shrunk their necks and didn't say anything. The manager of the law enforcement department was sweating from Yun Chujio's words. He didn't think too much about it, and the General Affairs Department was easy to deal with. However, if the 3 elders of Tianji Peak really pursued the matter, he wouldn't be able to bear it. At this moment, Yun Chujio continued, "As everyone knows, we got so many contribution points because we bred snow jade silkworms. If we die in the meditation cave and the breeding of snow jade silkworms is affected, will Tianji Peak come after you? Of course, you might think that someone will protect you, but snow jade silkworms are the treasure of Tianji Peak. Who has more face than the treasure of Tianji Peak? By the way, I think that what you did this time is a slap to the three elders' faces, and Tianji Peak has lost face because of it. TSK, you'll be in trouble in the future. The young steward's back was soaked in cold sweat. He didn't think so much when he promised that person. They were just 3 handymen. He thought that it was a small matter. Of course, what I said just now was just a guess. I believe that the punishment this steward gave us just now was just to scare us, right? Yun Chujio looked at the young steward with a faint smile. The little steward wiped the cold sweat that kept flowing out as he weighed the pros and cons. He gritted his teeth. That's right, I was indeed scaring you just now. Considering that your intentions were good and you didn't cause any losses, they'll confiscate your sex resources for half a year. We are fully convinced by this punishment. In that case, well, go back to work. In the future, they'll often come to the law enforcement office for a stroll. Let's have a good exchange about the explanation of the sex rules. After Yun Chujio finished speaking, she swaggered out of the small square with Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu. Old man Yao, who was watching from afar, stroked his beard and turned around to leave. Occasionally missing content, please report errors in time. The onlooker's jaws dropped. Yun Chujio left just like that. She changed Manager Zhong's mind just by saying a few words. She only punished the sex resources for half a year. Yun Chujio had plenty of spirit stones. She probably didn't even care about the sex resources for 10 years, let alone half a year. The punishment was almost the same as no punishment. Manager Zhong saw everyone's gaze and turned to leave with a stiff face. Little Jiu, where are we going now? Are we going back to the kitchen to work? Yi Bingyu still had lingering fear about what had just happened. Work my ass. If worst comes to worst, well, just punish the sex resources again. Besides, we're not going to work anywhere else, so they can't control us. They'll go back to the dormitory to take a shower and then go to the library to read. You guys can go wherever you want, Yun Chujio said indifferently. Yi Bingyu and Jin Ji were not interested in the library. They decided to find a place with rich spiritual energy to cultivate. After Yun Chujio returned to the dormitory, she took out a set of clean clothes from her storage ring and happened to catch a glimpse of the sheepskin scroll. Yun Chujio frowned. Why was this sheepskin scroll in her storage ring? Could it be that she accidentally took it in? Although she had plucked the feathers of wild geese, she was not a thief. She would return it to the library in a while. After Yun Chujio bathed, she ate something and went to the library again. Lu Shan, who was guarding the library, thought that Yun Chujio was captured by the law enforcement department and would definitely be in danger. He did not expect her to come back alive. Lu Shan helped Yun Chujio go through the procedures to enter the library with a gloomy face. Yun Chujio naturally would not take such a clown to heart. She entered the library happily. This guy found a comfortable seat and sat on the recliner to read. The other disciples who were reading on the first floor of the library could not help but snort when they saw Yun Chujio changing a book in less than 15 minutes. This Yun Chujio was not reading, she was here to have fun. A day passed quickly, and only Yun Chujio was left on the first floor of the library. She looked around before taking out the sheepskin scroll from her storage ring and throwing it into the air. Under normal circumstances, as long as the book was thrown into the air, it would float in the air. However, the sheepskin scroll fell to the ground with a thud. Yun Chujio was stunned. She picked it up and threw it into the air again. Thud, it fell to the ground again. Yun Chujio threw it a few times, and the parchment fell to the ground. Damn! Could it be that she was being blackmailed? Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. If someone found out that this book was on the ground, they would definitely get into trouble. Forget it, since it was just an incomplete book and not many people had read it, she would just keep it. Thinking of this, Yun Chujio had no choice but to keep the parchment into her storage ring again. This time, Yun Chujio stayed on the first floor of the library for a full 3 days. She flipped through all the books on the first floor of the library. Although she didn't gain much from refining pills and talismans, she learned a lot of strange things. It wasn't a waste to read them. She wanted to go to the second floor of the library. Unfortunately, the odd job workers could only read on the first floor of the library. They were not qualified to go to the second floor. There was only one way for odd job workers to become outer disciples, and that was through the biennial sect competition. All the top 50 odd job workers could be converted to outer disciples. Of course, there was another exception. That was if the spiritual power of the odd job disciples reached the level of spiritual space, they could be directly converted to inner disciples. But this was no different from a fool's dream. It was simply impossible. Yun Chujio sighed. She could ask the 3 birds in her dantian to spit out some more lightning spiritual power for cultivation, but it was not a long-term solution. Moreover, Xiao Hanio and Xiao Mogu also needed the power of lightning. How could they be struck by lightning? This was a very sad topic. Thus, a certain Jiao began to stroll around the Origin Chaos sect. This fellow's motive was obvious. He wanted to find a way to be struck by lightning. Or perhaps he could find a divine artifact like the heavenly Tao cliff. After hooking up, he would think of a way to get 2 heavenly lightning strikes. The people of the primordial chaos sect did not know Yun Chujio's motive. They only thought that she was temperamental and that was why she wandered around. A month later, other than some places that could not be entered, this fellow had gone around and found nothing. He rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment. She could not enter any forbidden places. Could it be that she could only make the 3 in her dantian spit out some lightning power? Just as he was frowning, he overheard the conversation of a few disciples. Senior brother Bien Chen has returned from the meditation cave. I heard that it was because of Yun Chujio and the others' test that senior brother Bien Chen was punished. Now that he has come out, he probably won't have a good ending for Yun Chujio. That's for sure. Senior brother Bien Chen is a true disciple. Wouldn't it be easy for him to take care of a handyman? If I were senior brother Bien Chen, I would also teach that Yun Chujio a lesson. Senior brother Bien Chen was sent to the 10th reflection cave. In the 10th reflection cave, other than the harsh environment, there are also wind blades attacking. The most fatal thing is that there are occasional heavenly lightning punishments. Even senior brother Bien Chen probably suffered a lot. A certain Jiao's eyes sparkled. Heavenly lightning punishments. Io. It was truly a waste of time and effort to search for it. It seemed that she needed to understand the meditation cave properly. In the Encyclopedia of Mixed Origin Sect Affairs, there was no detailed description of the meditation cave. It only said that the bigger the number, the harsher the punishment inside the meditation cave. This fellow rolled her eyes. The one who understood the cave of reflection the most was naturally the law enforcement office. Therefore, this guy swaggered to the law enforcement office. The disciples of the law enforcement office had a deep impression of Yun Chujio. They were all stunned when they saw her coming. What was this Yun Chujio doing here? Could it be that she wanted to report someone? Hello, senior brothers. I'm looking for Manager Zhong. May I know where he works? Yun Chujio said with a smile. The disciples of the law enforcement department were not used to Yun Chujio's kind expression. They were stunned for a moment before one of the disciples said, "Manager Zhong works in the third room on the right." Yun Chuzhou thanked the disciple who spoke with a smile and then jumped outside of Manager Zhong's room. Manager Zhong was really surprised to see Yun Chuzhou come in. He didn't know whether it was because of a guilty conscience or some other reason, but he actually stood up nervously. Yun Chuzhou, what are you doing here?" "I'm here to chat with you. We are old acquaintances. Don't be nervous. Sit down and let's have a good chat." Yun Chuzhou pulled a chair over and sat on it with her legs crossed. Manager Zhong felt that Yun Chuzhou had bad intentions. He said with a cold face, "I'm in the middle of work. I don't have time to chat. You can leave now." "I didn't say that I was chatting with you. I have something serious to ask you. Tell me about the specific situation of the meditation cave so that I can be mentally prepared. Otherwise, if I'm not careful, I'll be punished to go to the meditation cave with a big number. It'll be troublesome." Yun Chuzhou was still smiling. It was really like chatting with an old friend. Manager Zhong didn't want to talk about the meditation cave with Yun Chuzhou, but a certain Jiao showed no intention of leaving, so he could only briefly introduce the situation of the meditation cave. The meditation cave of the Hunyuan sect was set up to punish disciples who had committed mistakes, and it was said to have existed for tens of thousands of years. The meditation cave was located at the back of the Tianshu Peak, and it was arranged according to the number from 1 to 30. The higher the number, the heavier the punishment. The meditation cave number 1 to number 3 only had a harsh environment inside. There were no other punishments. The meditation cave number 4 to number 9 had a harsh environment and a wind blade punishment. Starting from the meditation cave number 10, besides the harsher environment and the heavier wind blade punishment, there was also a gradually heavier lightning punishment. Yun Chuzhou blinked her eyes. "Last time, you said that you wanted to send me to the meditation cave number 18 to be punished. I wonder what kind of spiritual power level person can withstand the punishment inside." Manager Zhong's face stiffened when he heard Yun Chuzhou mention the incident last time. He stammered and said, "The number 18 meditation cave. Generally, only spiritual power level people can withstand it." Yun Chuzhou glanced at him and didn't say anything. She skipped away. Manager Zhong couldn't understand what Yun Chuzhou meant. He paced back and forth restlessly in the room. He picked up his identity jade token and said, "That Yun Chuzhou came to me today to find out about the situation at Sigua Cave. Although she didn't say anything, I have a feeling that she wants to take revenge on me." A woman's voice came from the jade token, "HMPH, she's just a handyman. Look at your future. How can she take revenge on you? She's really as timid as a mouse." Manager Zhong heard the woman's words and felt that it was true. Yun Chuzhou was just a handyman. How could she really dare to do anything to him? He must be thinking too much. After Yun Chuzhou left the law enforcement office, she took out the complete works of the Hunyuan sect and flipped through it. Her finger tapped on one of the items. This was just right. The place where her finger was written said, "The 10th rule of the sect, beat up a fellow disciple. Depending on the severity of the incident, divide the punishment by forfeiting the sect's resources and considering the consequences." There were relevant rules under this rule. Yun Chuzhou felt that the 10th thought hole was enough. After all, she did not know the situation of the wind blades inside, so it was better to be conservative. Beat up a fellow disciple. Who should she beat up? Just as Yun Chuzhou was looking for a target to beat up, someone came to her door during lunch on this day. "Yun Chuzhou, I didn't expect that my injury would help you. If it weren't for you, would I have been attacked by the snow jade silkworm? Shouldn't you compensate me for my loss?" The one who spoke was Mu Wu, who had forcefully brought Yun Chuzhou and the others to Mulberry Garden a few days ago. He deliberately exaggerated his injury and removed his position in Mulberry Garden. He didn't expect that Yun Chujio and the other two would take advantage of him. Naturally, he felt very unbalanced. Originally, he didn't plan to come and settle the score with Yun Chujio. However, Yi Bingying had been quite close to him recently. She had intentionally or unintentionally said that Yun Chujio had earned a few 100 million spirit stones during the test. As time went by, Mu Wu started to have evil thoughts. That was why he came to ask Yun Chujio for spirit stones. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu stood beside Yun Chujio. Their expressions were slightly nervous. Jin Ji was about to open her mouth to defend herself. Yun Chujio curled her lips and said, "Where did this mad dog come from? Don't you know that it's lunchtime now? Why did you come here for no reason? You were only bitten by the snow jade silkworm back then, and you pretended to be very serious. Do you think that everyone doesn't know your purpose? Didn't you come here just to escape from the mission of Mulberry Garden? How dare a coward like you extort my spirit stones? If I were you, I would have smashed my head against the wall and died." At this time, it was lunchtime. When they heard the commotion outside, they all ran out to watch the commotion. When they heard Yun Chujio's words, they immediately broke out in cold sweat on her behalf. She was just a handyman, and that Mu Wu was an inner sect disciple. She actually dared to talk back to him like this. She was really audacious. I see that you want shed tears until you see the coffin. Immediately apologize to me and compensate me with 10 million high-grade spirit stones. Otherwise, I won't be polite anymore." Mu Wu said angrily out of embarrassment. "Not polite? How are you not polite? Don't tell me you want to beat up fellow disciples." Yun Chujio said disdainfully with her arms crossed over her shoulders. You, don't forget that although the primordial chaos sect forbids beating up fellow disciples, they can issue a challenge. Even if I kill you on the life and death stage, it won't violate the sect rules. When everyone heard Mu Wu's words, they immediately exploded. Although the primordial chaos sect had such a saying, the primordial chaos sect's motto was to show fraternity to fellow disciples. Therefore, no one would easily issue a challenge. This was because even if they were not punished by the sect rules, it would still be against the principles of fellow disciples and would be disliked by the higher-ups of the primordial chaos sect. The reason why Mu Wu said this was to intimidate Yun Chujio. He felt that if a small handyman heard about the life and death arena, he would definitely be timid and give in. Everyone's thoughts were similar to Mu Wu's. They all looked at Yun Chujio, thinking that she would definitely give in. What everyone did not expect was that Yun Chujio suddenly jumped in front of Mu Wu and slapped him. By the time everyone reacted, Mu Wu was already restrained by Yun Chujio. Everyone rubbed their eyes. How was this possible? Mu Wu was at the 8th layer of the spiritual void tier, while Yun Chujio was only at the 6th layer of the spiritual profound tier. The difference between them could be said to be heaven and earth. How could Mu Wu be imprisoned by her? Although it was a successful sneak attack, it also meant that Yun Chujio's movement technique was too fast. Mu Wu's face flushed red. He had never thought that he would be caught off guard and fall into the trap. He shouted fiercely on the outside, but on the inside, he was cowardly. "Yun Chujio, what do you want to do? Don't tell me you want to publicly beat up your fellow disciples." Yun Chujio smiled brightly. "Congratulations, you got it right. I'm going to beat you up. You tortoise bastard, I haven't settled the score with you yet, and you actually came to me of your own accord. I'll beat you to death." Yun Chujio took the rolling pin and beat him up. Everyone was dumbfounded. Was this Yun Chujio crazy? Didn't she know that beating up a fellow disciple in public would be punished? Moreover, she had offended her superiors. The person she had beaten was an inner sect disciple, so the punishment she would receive would be even heavier. Although Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were relieved to see Mu Wu beaten black and blue, they were also very worried. They advised from the side, "Little Jiu, stop beating him." Yun Chujiu said indifferently, "Don't mind it. I must teach this shameless bastard a good lesson today. If anyone wants to bully us, even if it's the Heavenly King himself, I will beat them up." Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu knew Yun Chujiu's personality. They thought that Yun Chujiu must have a backup plan, so they stopped trying to persuade her. Fatty Song and Fatty Luo from the kitchen stood behind the crowd and clicked their tongues. Fortunately, they didn't offend Yun Chujiu too much. Otherwise, they wouldn't have just killed the chicken. Old Man Yao came out of the house when he heard the commotion. He frowned when he saw Yun Chujiu, who was beating someone up, but he didn't say anything. Yun Chujiu's beating was extremely satisfying. Mu Wu's face was swollen like a pig's head, and his front teeth were knocked out by a certain jiu. His throat was almost broken from shouting. If it wasn't for Yi Bingying, who was hiding in the crowd, calling the people from the law enforcement department over, Mu Wu would probably die here. When the disciples from the law enforcement department saw that it was Yun Chujiu who had committed a crime, their heads hurt a little. The last time, this person had managed to get away with the crime. They didn't know what kind of trick she was going to play this time. Especially when they saw that Mu Wu was beaten to a pulp, they thought to themselves, could it be that this Yun Chujiu was crazy? She actually beat an inner sect disciple to such a state. When Mu Wu saw the law enforcement disciples coming over, he shouted with snot and tears in his eyes, "Help! Help! This Yun Chujiu beat up a fellow disciple. Hurry up and tie her up." When the law enforcing disciples saw Mu Wu's honor, they could not help but feel a little disgusted. Moreover, he had a commanding tone, which made them feel even more displeased. Therefore, they turned a blind eye to the fact that Yun Chujiu beat up Mu Wu twice in front of them. "Both parties involved, come with us." After Mu Wu was released from the confinement of his spiritual power, he looked at Yun Chujiu with his red eyes. He wanted to kill Yun Chujiu to vent his anger, but he did not dare to openly violate the sect rules. He gritted his teeth and decided to wait and see in the future. The law enforcement disciples escorted the two of them to the law enforcement office, followed by a large group of disciples. They felt that ever since Yun Chujiu entered the primordial chaos sect, they could have some fun to watch every 2 to 3 days. It was really not bad. Everyone left in a huff. Old Man Yao thought for a moment and followed behind them with his hands behind his back. Fatty Song and Fatty Luo curled their lips when they saw this. Why was this old man following them? Did a good-for-nothing think that he was so capable? Coincidentally, Manager Zhong was still on duty today. Manager Zhong thought of what that person had said to him and gritted his teeth. He had lost face last time, so he had to get it back this time. Moreover, this time, the evidence was conclusive, so she couldn't deny it even if she wanted to. "Yun Chujiu, you beat up a fellow disciple in public. Do you know your crime?" "Yes, I know my crime." "Don't even think about denying it. In front of everyone, it's not like you can deny it." "What? You know your crime?" Manager Zhong said halfway before he realized that Yun Chujiu actually said that she knew her crime. Was there something wrong with her brain? "Yes, I admit that I beat up that bastard." "Who asked him to extort my spirit stones?" Yun Chujiu straightened her back and said righteously. "Even if there's something wrong with him, you shouldn't hit him." According to the 10th rule of the sect, you will be punished with 1 year's worth of sect resources, and you will be locked up in number 8 to meditate for 3 months. Manager Zhong said in a businesslike manner. "Are you stupid? It was this bastard who provoked me first. Shouldn't I resist?" Yun Chujiu pointed at Manager Zhong's nose and scolded. Manager Zhong didn't know that Yun Chujio was planning to make a big deal out of this. At the very least, she had to go to the number 10 reflection cave. What was the point of going to the number 8 reflection cave? You, how dare you? You publicly insulted your fellow disciple and added another month of reflection. Manager Zhong said angrily. Yun Chujio was angry. Can you be a little more bold? You only added 1 month of strength, but you raised the level of the reflection cave. She was so worried. It seemed that she had to do something. Otherwise, she might not be able to achieve her goal of going to the 10th meditation cave. Humph. I finally understand now. It turns out that you two are like a nest of snakes and rats. You're all the same. Is it that bastard who extorted my spiritual stones and wants to give you half of them? He's simply going too far. Today, he'll let you see how powerful I am. After saying that, Yun Chujio threw a cracked talisman at Manager Zhong's desk. Boom! Manager Zhong's desk was blown into pieces. Although Manager Zhong dodged it, he was still in a very sorry state. His hair was about to stand up in anger. Yun Chujio thought to herself, it seems that there is such a thing as being angry. Everyone was shocked by this unexpected turn of events. Was this Yun Chujio crazy? Even Yi Bingyu and Jin Ji did not expect that Yun Chujio would blow up Manager Zhong's desk. What did little Jio want to do? Manager Zhong was about to go crazy from anger. I originally thought that you had just entered the sect and punished you to go to the number 8 reflection cave, but I did not expect you to be so willful. Then go to the number 10 reflection cave. Yun Chujio jumped and shouted, I refuse to accept it. I refuse to accept it. This is official vindictiveness, you shameless bastard. Take her away. Bring her to the 10th meditation cave immediately. The deadline is 4 months. Manager Zhong was furious and ordered his men to take Yun Chujio away quickly. Yun Chujio shouted, even if I admit defeat, what about that Mu Wu? If he didn't come to find trouble with me shamelessly, would I have made a mistake? Manager Zhong's mind was full of anger. When he heard Yun Chujio's words, he said, Mu Wu provoked me for no reason and was punished with a year's worth of sect resources. If he commits a crime again, he will definitely be severely punished. TCH. This punishment is like a forfeit. They are indeed colluding with each other. Yun Chujio muttered unwillingly. Manager Zhong felt his head hurt just by looking at her. He waved his hand repeatedly and let her go. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were anxious and wanted to go forward to argue. Yun Chujio gave them a look that said, calm down. Although the two of them did not understand what Yun Chujio was up to, they were used to listening to Yun Chujio's arrangements, they could only watch Yun Chujio being taken away. Old man Yao watched from the corner with his hands behind his back. He raised his left foot and put it down again. Then, he shook his head and left. The disciples who were eating melon seeds shone with the light of gossip and disgust among themselves. I think that Yun Chujio will lose half of her life this time. That is the number 10 reflection cave. Moreover, it will last for 4 months. How can she hold on? This is all her own doing. If she didn't blow up Manager Zhong's desk, she wouldn't have been punished to the number 10 reflection cave. TSK, I have to say, this Yun Chujio is really too bold. Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu became even more worried when they heard the crowd's discussion, but they could only listen to Yun Chujio's arrangements. Just as they were worried, Jin Ji's identity jade tablet started to vibrate, and Yun Chujio's voice came from inside. There were only 2 words, don't read it. Jin Ji frowned. It seemed like little Jio made such a fuss on purpose. Could it be that her goal was to meditate? On the other side, Yun Chujio did not stop talking along the way. Sigh, I'm really wronged. I'm really sitting at home behind closed doors, and trouble comes from the sky. I'm so unlucky. I'm telling you, stay away from that manager Zhong in the future. Someone like him who uses his power for personal gain will get into trouble sooner or later. Don't you feel that I'm quite wronged? I only hit that Mu Wu a few times. Is there a need to punish me so severely? When I come out of the cave of reflection, I'll still hit him. Those law enforcement disciples kept quiet. They thought to themselves, still want to hit him? It's not certain if you can come out alive. The cave of reflection on the 10th was not a joke. Moreover, it would take 4 months. Even if a weak chicken like her did not die, she would still be skinned alive. However, they didn't have any friendship with Yun Chujio, so they naturally wouldn't say anything. An hour later, the law enforcement disciples escorted Yun Chujio to the reflection cave. Yun Chujio originally thought that the reflection cave was just a bunch of broken caves. She did not expect that it was not the case at all. There was a teleportation formation on the ground, and there were people guarding it. The law enforcement disciples handed the punishment decision with the great seal of the law enforcement department to a small leader who was guarding the formation. That person looked at it and then sized up Yun Chujio. Stand inside the teleportation formation and I'll send you to the 10th reflection cave now. TSK, you're really hitting a rock with an egg. I'm afraid that in less than half a month, your little life will be over, the small leader said with slight disdain. Yun Chujio pursed her lips and did not speak. She had a stubborn look on her face. The small leader curled his lips and began to form seals with his hands. A white light flashed and Yun Chujio's figure disappeared from the spot. When Yun Chujio regained her sight, she found herself in a simple cave. Although the cave was simple, it was quite spacious. It was probably convenient for the punished disciples to avoid wind blades and lightning. The temperature in the cave was very low. It was as cold as ice. Yun Chujio took out firewood and started a bonfire. The temperature in the cave was slightly higher. Yun Chujio looked around and knocked with a rolling pin, but she didn't find anything strange. She didn't know where the wind blades and lightning would come from. The reason why this guy tried to enter the meditation cave was partly to absorb the lightning and cultivate, and partly to study how the lightning came from the meditation cave. If she could find a way, she would be very happy. While Yun Chujio was dreaming, she heard a slight noise. She was shocked. The wind blades were about to blow. Suddenly, wind blades shot out from the top of her head and the ground. Fuck. If she was not careful, she would be cut into 1,000 pieces. Fortunately, these wind blades were straight up and down. As long as she was agile, she could still avoid them. Yun Chujio kept dodging the wind blades that shot out. Soon, she was drenched in sweat. Damn it, this number 10 thought cave was not given to her for free. If these damn wind blades did not stop, she would be exhausted to death. After an hour, the wind blades finally stopped and the cave returned to peace. Yun Chujio wiped the sweat on her head. She did not know how often these wind blades would blow. If they were very frequent, wouldn't she not feel at ease even when she slept? Also, why were there only wind blades and no lightning? If there were no lightning, she would be at a huge disadvantage. Just as this fellow was complaining, a bolt of lightning shot out from the ceiling and struck towards Yun Chujio. A certain Jiu almost jumped up in joy. After being struck, she closed her eyes comfortably and said, again, again. In the end, after waiting for a long time, no lightning struck again. This fellow was instantly discouraged. What was going on? Just this one bolt of lightning. This was not enough to fill the gaps between her teeth. This fellow sat on the ground dejectedly. If she had known this would happen, she would have blown up the law enforcement office. Perhaps she would have been thrown into the number 30 reflection cave. The lightning in the number 30 reflection cave was definitely more frequent and more powerful than the lightning here. However, she could not withstand the wind blades inside. She was really conflicted. Just as she was feeling vexed, another bolt of lightning came down from above her head. She immediately went up to meet it, muttering, "Come, don't be so stingy. Chop a few more times, preferably 180 times. The lightning lasted for about 15 minutes. A certain Jiu wasn't too satisfied with it, but it was better to have it than not. After all, it was better to have it. Anyway, she was going to be locked up here for 4 months. When the 4 months were up, she would beat up anyone she disliked, and then she would be able to enter again. How was she so smart? After about 2 hours, a new round of wind blade attacks began. Because of her previous experience, Yun Chujio was able to dodge the wind blade attacks with ease. Then, she was happily struck by lightning. What was happiness? Happiness was being struck by lightning. This fellow's good mood disappeared when she was sleepy at night. Lightning was easy to deal with. If she was willing to be struck, then she would be struck. But the wind blade couldn't do it. If she wasn't careful, she might be cut into 1,000 pieces in her sleep. What should she do? Yun Chujio finally understood why everyone felt that the reflection cave was terrifying. They might be able to deal with 1 or 2 waves of attacks, but these attacks that were separated by 2 hours made it impossible for them to relax and have a good rest. It would indeed be a torture if this continued. Yun Chujio's thoughts were right, but she didn't know that lightning attacks were the most difficult to endure for the others. After all, the wind blade attack was straightforward, so it was easier to dodge it. However, lightning could find its target. Other than using the spiritual energy shield to block it, it could only endure it. This guy blinked his eyes. The idea was human. In order to have a good sleep, he had to think of a good way to dodge the wind blade. This guy glanced around and his eyes suddenly lit up. The wind blades shot out from the ceiling and the ground were straight up and down. If she created a cave on the side wall, wouldn't that solve the problem? When this guy thought of this, he asked Xiao He to start digging. Unexpectedly, Xiao He said with a sad face, "Master, I don't know what material this stone wall is made of. I can't dig it." Yun Chujio was stunned. She didn't expect that there was something that Xiao He couldn't dig. She put Xiao He away and took out a few sudden cracked talismans and threw them on the stone wall. Boom! Boom! After a few loud bangs, the side wall was still safe and sound. This guy rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment. It seemed that he could only use the large kitchen knife. Yun Chujio used the large kitchen knife and hacked hard, easily cutting off a piece of rock. Yun Chujio was very proud. She was already 99% sure that the large kitchen knife in her hand was the Heaven Punisher divine axe. Who would have thought that the large kitchen knife that she casually used was actually a divine weapon? Ha! This guy took the big kitchen knife and cut a side hole that was enough for a person to move. This guy thought that the stones cut off might be treasures, so he put all the stones into his storage ring. Yun Chujio laid a snow cashmere blanket in the side hole and tried it happily. It was perfect. She didn't expect that extreme joy would lead to sorrow. The wind blade was dodged. When the lightning came, it hit the blanket. Thick smoke billowed, and the guy almost choked to death. Cough cough. Cough cough. A wise man must make a mistake after careful consideration. It's better to lie on a rock. The fellow could only take out a large kitchen knife to flatten the inside a little before lying down. Although it was a little painful, it was still better than choking to death. Thus, from this day on, the fellow began to live a blissful life with lightning strikes. Xiao Hanio and Xiao Mogu also rubbed against some lightning. However, Xiao Hanio was not satisfied. There was too little lightning. If he only absorbed a little, it would take a long time before he could break through. It would be best if he could go to a higher number of thought holes. Xiao Hanio rubbed his chin and pondered. He estimated that the next door to the 10th thought hole should be the 11th or 9th thought hole. Generally speaking, they were arranged from left to right. The right side of the 10th hole should be the 11th hole. Therefore, this guy started to dig the hole. Master, it's one thing for you to dig your own hole, but for you to dig someone else's hole, aren't you afraid that the sect will teach you a lesson? Xiao Hanio felt that she had broken her heart for this black-hearted master. What's there to be afraid of? There's no rule in the sect rules that forbids you from digging your own hole. At most, you can punish me for thinking about it, that's what I'm looking forward to. A certain Jiu continued to dig. What if you run into another disciple? What if you coincidentally dig a hole and he thinks about it inside? A certain Jiu's movements paused. That's right, what if she ran into someone else? Who cares? How can we run into each other so coincidentally? Let's dig first before we talk. A certain Jiu continued to dig. A certain Jiu's thoughts were quite simple. She thought that the hole and the hole shouldn't be too far apart. Who would have thought that even after 2 days of digging, she still couldn't dig to the end? Now, this fellow was riding a tiger and could not get down. If she did not dig ahead, all her previous efforts would be wasted. Let's dig ahead. She did not know if there were other thought holes ahead. Gritting her teeth, she could only continue digging. After digging for another 2 days, when a certain Jiu climbed out, she was so angry that she wanted to bang her head against the wall. In front of her was a lush forest. It was obvious that she had already left the area of the thought hole. Oh my God! Why did she dig it out just like that? She really didn't want to escape from prison. She looked around and saw that there was no one around before she crawled out of the cave. It wasn't easy to dig it out, so it was good to get some fresh air. A certain Jiu was stretching and enjoying the fresh air when someone coughed. A certain Jiu almost collapsed in fright. She turned around and saw that it was Old Man Yao. Old Man Yao was holding a small shovel in his hand and a wild vegetable in his hand. He was looking at her in a daze. A certain Jiu coughed dryly. That, Old Man Yao, what a coincidence. We are fated to meet each other. We are fated to not meet each other, so I came out to get some fresh air. Old Man Yao followed Yun Chujia's gaze and looked at the dog hole. He then looked at Yun Chujio and asked with a stiff face, that is the reflection cave. Since when did the reflection hole become a dog hole? He could enter and exit as he pleased. Yun Chujio rubbed her hands and laughed dryly, I just dug casually. Who would have thought that I would come here? This is all a misunderstanding, a misunderstanding. Are you digging wild vegetables? Do you want to go to the reflection hole with me? The corner of Old Man Yao's eyes twitched violently. From what she said, why did it feel like the reflection hole was like her living room? Who in their right mind would sit in the cave of reflection for no reason? The two of them fell into an awkward silence for a while. Old Man Yao pointed at the entrance of the cave. Go back quickly. It'll help you seal the entrance of the cave so that no one will find out. Stop fooling around. 4 months will pass very soon. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes and took out a wine gourd from her storage ring. She giggled. This is the hush money, hee. Old Man Yao glared at her, but he still took the wine gourd and sighed. There's a limit to what you can do. Don't dig anymore. The cave of reflection has existed for tens of thousands of years. If you destroy it, the higher-ups will not forgive you. Don't worry, I will fill it up. Well, I will go back now. See you later. After Yun Chuzhou said that, she went into the cave and waved her claws at Old Man Yao. Old Man Yao shook his head speechlessly. He walked to the cave and saw that the cave was sealed with stones. He couldn't help but smile. This little girl was prepared. Old Man Yao smeared some soil on the stone. Then, he took out a handful of seeds from his storage ring and scattered them on the ground. The seeds broke out of the ground in an instant and grew rapidly. Soon, they turned into large vines that covered the entrance of the cave. Old Man Yao cleaned up the footprints left by Yun Chuzhou one by one. He sighed and carried the small shovel to continue digging wild vegetables. A certain Jiu mumbled as she blocked the passage with a stone, "Damn, I was scared to death. Fortunately, I met Old Man Yao. It would be terrible if I met someone else. It seems that this hole was not dug randomly. Sigh. I have to fill up the hole even if I have to cry. It seems that this reflection hole is not adjacent to each other. Perhaps each hole is thousands of miles away. It is obviously not realistic to dig holes. It seems that I can only wait for 4 months before I can think of a way to go to the high-level reflection hole." Half a month later, the disciples of the law enforcement department arrived at the teleportation array of the meditation cave. Due to Tianji Peak's application, Yun Chuzhi's meditation time has been reduced. Please let her out. The disciple of the law enforcement department said as he handed the document to the small leader who managed the teleportation array. Yo, I didn't expect Yun Chuzhou to be protected by a noble. Although it's only been half a month, I think she's only left with half her life. The leader said as he began to form a seal. Then, he was stunned. According to common sense, Yun Chuzhou should have been teleported out after he formed a seal. Why didn't she come out? The leader and everyone looked at each other. The disciple of the law enforcement department said in surprise, Could it be that Yun Chuzhou has already died inside? That might be true. The corpse might have been turned into ashes by the lightning, which is why it wasn't teleported out, someone echoed. That's not right either. At least the sect token and storage ring wouldn't have been turned into ashes. Why wasn't it sent out? The leader retorted. The law enforcement division disciple didn't expect such a situation. He hesitated for a moment and asked, Then what do we do now? How do I report back? The leader clenched his teeth, he was clearly in a difficult position. Junior brother, I won't hide it from you. Although I'm in charge of this teleportation array, I can only control this teleportation array. I know nothing about the situation inside the cave. Also, without the document of your law enforcement office, you are not allowed to enter the cave. So, I think you should go back and report to your manager. The disciple of the law enforcement office had no choice but to bring his men back to the law enforcement office. What? Dead? How did she die in half a month? Manager Zhong stood up and asked in disbelief. His head buzzed. He had planned to let Yun Chuzhou die in the meditation cave, but it had only been half a month. How did she die? A handyman had died, but Tianji Peak had sent someone to find Elder Chu of the law enforcement department to plead with him. They said that the mating period of the snow jade silkworm was coming, and they needed Yun Chuzhi's help. What the hell? What did the mating of the snow jade silkworm have to do with this damn Yun Chuzhou? Manager Zhong had no choice but to meet Elder Chu of the law enforcement office and tell her what had happened. After hearing this, Elder Chu frowned and said, How about this? Go to the number 10 meditation cave and see for yourself. Although Manager Zhong was unwilling, he had no choice but to take Elder Chu's identity jade token and go to the teleportation array of the meditation cave. Manager Zhong explained the purpose of his visit. The little leader who was in charge of the teleportation array immediately asked him to stand inside the array and then formed a seal with his hands. Unexpectedly, the teleportation was not successful. Everyone looked at each other. What was going on? There can only be one person in each cave in the Sigua cave. Is Yun Chuzhou still alive? But if she is not dead, why isn't she being teleported out? The little leader asked in confusion. Well, can we use the identity jade token to ask? Manager Zhong sincerely hoped that Yun Chuzhou was still alive. The leader shook his head. The identity jade token in the cave is invalid, but the voice transmission talisman is fine. But do you have Yun Chuzhou's voice transmission talisman? Although Manager Zhong didn't have Yun Chuzhou's voice transmission talisman, he felt that Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu should have it, so he asked the law enforcement disciples to bring them here. After Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu were brought here, Manager Zhong went straight to the point and asked, "Contact Yun Chuzhou with the voice transmission talisman and see if she's still alive. Why isn't she being sent up?" Jin Ji thought to herself, of course little Jiu is alive. She's still alive and kicking. She had sent a voice transmission talisman to little Jiu yesterday. Elder Ding of Tianji Peak had sent people to find her and Yi Bingyu in the mulberry garden. After she communicated with Yun Chuzhou, she told Elder Ding that Yun Chuzhou had to be the one to handle the mating of the snow jade silkworms. That was why Tianji Peak had sent people to talk to Yun Chuzhou. Jin Ji took out the voice transmission talisman and told Yun Chuzhou about what had happened. After a while, Jin Ji said to the leader, "Little Jiu said that a wind blade is blowing in the number 10 meditation cave. It might affect the teleportation array. He'll let you try again in 2 hours." Manager Zhong was relieved when he heard that Yun Chuzhou was still alive. The little leader in charge of the teleportation array felt as if his heart was going crazy. After so many years, he had never encountered such a situation. Could it really be the problem of the wind blade? Of course, the wind blade was not a problem, but the problem was a certain Jiu. A certain Jiu hid in the side hole, so she was not teleported out. After receiving Jin Ji's voice transmission talisman, this guy immediately started to seal the side hole. However, there was a problem. Even if the hole was sealed, it could still be seen that it had been artificially dug. Only a fool would not be able to see it. This fellow rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment. Then, he took out a lot of mud from the Great Void Mystic Realm and quickly painted the walls on both sides of the hole. Only then did this fellow nod his head in satisfaction. He believed that no one would be bored enough to dig the mud on the wall. Moreover, even if they dug the mud, it wouldn't be so coincidental that they dug the hole that she dug. It's a pity that the mud hasn't dried yet. Otherwise, I could write on it that little Jiu is here for a trip or something. A certain Jiu felt that it was quite a pity. Just as this guy was mumbling, a white light flashed in front of his eyes. When he regained his sight, he was already sent outside. "Yo, Manager Zhong, you came to pick me up personally? Could it be that you feel guilty, so you came to apologize to me?" Yun Chuzhou looked at Manager Zhong and said with a faint smile. You. Humph, I won't lower myself to your level. This time, Tianji Peak is pleading for you. Next time, you won't be so lucky." After saying those words angrily, Manager Zhong left angrily. Yun Chuzhou shouted at his back, "Hey, I'll visit you when I have time. Let's continue to hurt each other." Manager Zhong staggered, snorted, and left quickly. Yun Chuzhou curled her lips and then turned to look at the little leader who was guarding the array. "They'll have to trouble Senior Marshal Brother to buy a bag of tea leaves for everyone with these spirit stones." The little leader saw that Yun Chuzhou had actually given him a total of 100,000 spirit stones. The expression on his face immediately turned from disdain to enthusiasm. Junior Marshal Sister Yun, you're really too polite. As the saying goes, when the end is near, the end is near. In the future, you definitely won't come to meditate again. Yun Chujio smiled and didn't say anything. Idiot. If I didn't come again, would I give you so many spiritual stones? It wasn't like she had no money to spend. After Yun Chujio and the other two left the meditation cave, Yun Chujio asked about the situation for the past half a month and then went straight to Tianji Peak. After Yun Chujio expressed her gratitude, she continued, Elder Ding, of course, we are willing to go to the mulberry garden to help. But last time, because of this matter, the law enforcement department almost locked me in the number 18 meditation cave. So this time, you don't have to worry. I'll handle this matter. You can go to the mulberry garden to help with your worries, but I can't give you so many contribution points this time. Elder Ding, you're being too polite. We've been friends for a long time, so how can I still need contribution points? Elder Ding nodded. This little girl was not bad, at least she was not too greedy. Well, Elder Ding, we don't want the contribution points. I heard that the silk of the snow jade silkworm is very good at making clothes. Can you give us 10 or 8 pieces? If we raise the silkworm once and don't even have a piece of the snow jade silkworm's clothes, how embarrassing would that be? Elder Ding, she wasn't greedy. She was simply plucking the feathers of wild geese. The two of them bargained, and in the end, they settled on one piece of the snow jade silkworm's cloth for each person. A certain Jiu felt that she had to have a good relationship with Elder Ding, therefore, she began to remedy the situation. Elder Ding, it's not that I'm greedy. This person needs motivation to work hard, right? Besides, you've paid us, so you want to order us around? Elder Ding snorted coldly. He finally understood that Yun Chujio only had a good mouth, but her heart was black. Elder Ding, I won't let your cloth go to waste. Well, let me give you a suggestion worth 1,000 gold coins, Yun Chujio said mysteriously. Elder Ding was stunned. What suggestion? According to the current scale of reproduction, there will be more and more snow jade silkworms on Tianji Peak. The golden silk mulberry trees in the mulberry garden will not be enough. You'd better expand the mulberry garden. Elder Ding glanced at her. What kind of valuable suggestion is this? Even if you don't say it, I plan to expand the mulberry garden. Yun Chujio giggled. This shows that we have the same idea. However, you may have overlooked one thing. Behind the mulberry garden is a cliff. Even if we expand it, there isn't enough space. Elder Ding was stunned. He hadn't thought about this. If they expanded the mulberry garden, they might have to demolish some buildings. Elder Ding, our Tianji Peak doesn't have space, but other peaks do. You can rent their place and pay them some rent every year. Of course, you can also help them build a mulberry garden and provide them with early-stage seed silkworms. However, you can't help them for nothing. 1/3 of the profits from their mulberry garden must be given to our Tianji Peak. Of course, you can give them half of the profits and give them some leeway to bargain. Elder Ding was stunned for a moment. Obviously, he didn't understand what Yun Chujio meant. Then, he stood up and said, Excellent. 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 Elder Ding rubbed his hands excitedly. You little girl, you're really smart. Go to the mulberry garden and work first. I'll report this to the Peak Master. Yun Chujio nodded and left Elder Ding's courtyard with Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu. Of course, this guy wasn't giving Elder Ding advice out of kindness. This guy had his own tricks. It would be best if Tianji Peak had mulberry gardens on the other 6 peaks. In that case, all the peaks would have to protect her, the snow jade silkworm elder. When the time came, even if she caused some trouble, she would have someone to speak up for her, right? Soon, the mating period of the snow jade silkworm ended, and the breeding of the little silkworms was very successful. Elder Ding also fulfilled his promise and gave each of the 3 people a snow jade silkworm silk. A certain Jiao thought that she should find someone to beat up. Who should she beat up? Therefore, this guy started to cheat all the members of the primordial chaos sect. It was a pity that no one dared to provoke Yun Chujio, not knowing if it was because Yun Chujio's performance last time was too fierce or because of Tianji Peak. A certain Jiao was depressed. Why was it so hard to cheat? She had no choice but to open the Encyclopedia of Affairs of the Primordial Chaos Sect and read through the items one by one, trying to find the appropriate items. Finally, she found one of the items, and her eyes lit up. The 20th rule of the sect was, trespass into a forbidden area. According to the severity of the plot, if the plot is light, the offender will be punished with meditation, and if the plot is serious, the offender will be expelled from the primordial chaos sect. A certain Jiao touched her chin. This was good. As long as she knew the rules, she would be able to enter the meditation cave as she wished. This was it. However, there were several forbidden areas in the primordial chaos sect. Where should she go? Forget it, she could just find one. Even if there were disciples guarding it, she might not be able to enter. Thus, on a dark and windy night 1 month later, a certain Jiao sneaked to the back mountain of Yuheng Peak. After avoiding a few patrolling disciples, she saw the words, forbidden area, that were as red as blood as she wished. A certain Jiao dashed into the forbidden area at lightning speed. She thought that something strange would happen when she arrived at the so-called forbidden area, such as where she would be teleported to, or maybe there was a room inside. Who could tell her why this barren land was called a forbidden area? She guessed that the patrolling disciples would come back soon. She had just barged in and didn't do anything. At most, she would be punished to the meditation cave of number 5 or number 6. She would have to do something. However, this place was bare. How could she cause trouble? This fellow scratched his ears and cheeks as he spun a few times. Got it. This fellow took out a stack of sudden rupture talismans and threw them into the distance. He thought to himself with delight. Such a huge commotion, and this should be considered as destroying the forbidden area. He could definitely be punished severely. He was really smart. This fellow was elated for only a few seconds before tragedy struck. Following several loud bangs, the entire forbidden area began to sink. Troublemaker Jiao wanted to run away, but sadly discovered that she was unable to move at all. It was as if she was trapped in her original spot. Heavens, she finally understood what it meant to seek death by playing tricks. She was one. Was it too late to regret now? Amidst the flying dust, the miserable certain Jiao was regretting when she discovered that she was slowly rising up. A certain Jiao looked down in disbelief and saw a spire rising up from the bottom of her butt. A certain Jiao, fuck. Did she accidentally trigger some mechanism or remove some seal? The most important thing now was, how was she going to leave this damned spire? She didn't want to be the mascot of this spire. The few patrolling disciples heard a huge explosion and rushed to the edge of the forbidden area. Then, they saw the following scene. Under the dim moonlight, a black ancient pagoda slowly rose. A little girl sat on the top of the pagoda. If it wasn't for the little girl screaming for help like a pig being slaughtered, they would have thought that the scene was quite beautiful. Everyone was stunned for a moment, and then someone exclaimed, "Isn't that Yun Chujio? Why did she run into the forbidden area? And what's going on with that pagoda? Aya, we don't have the time to study what's going on right now. It's better to save her quickly and report to the sect." Wait. That's a forbidden area, we can't go in there. Besides, what if we get hung on the pagoda when we go in? We should first report to the elders for instructions. A garlic nose stopped them. Just as they were discussing, Yun Chuzhou suddenly disappeared from the top of the tower. A second before Yun Chuzhou lost consciousness, she only had one thought. That damn garlic nose, just you wait for her to come out and beat him up first. When the disciples saw Yun Chuzhou disappear, they became even more anxious. Where did Yun Chuzhou go? Not long after, Master Bailey and the other peak masters of the Primordial Chaos sect arrived. Everyone was shocked and they saw the Black Tower in the Forbidden Area. They had never known that there was a Black Tower in the Forbidden Area at the back of the mountain of Yuheng Peak. Of course, this was because no one had ever used a sudden rupture talisman to blow up the Forbidden Area. Master Bailey asked briefly what had happened. Was it that little girl, Yun Chuzhou, again? Ever since she entered the sect, she seemed to have never stopped. It was really strange that a small handyman could make such a fuss. Naturally, Sect Master Bailey and the other peak masters would not rashly step into the Forbidden Area together. If they were all finished, then the Chaos Origin sect would also be finished. Therefore, Mountain Master He of Yuheng Peak unhesitatingly entered the Forbidden Area. After stepping into the Forbidden Area, there was nothing unusual. The Black Tower continued to rise until it finally stopped moving. Mountain Master He counted. This Black Tower had a total of 9 floors. At the bottom floor, there was a similarly pitch-black door. Above the door, there were 3 large characters written in ancient characters. He did not recognize them. Mountain Master He did not recognize them, but Mountain Master Bailey did. Those 3 characters were, Azura Prison. When Mountain Master Bailey's words left his mouth, everyone was stunned. Azura Prison? Why did it sound so scary? How could there still be something with such a murderous aura in the Primordial Chaos sect? Would its appearance bring disaster to the Primordial Chaos sect? Mountain Master He raised his spiritual energy barrier to push the pitch-black door, but there was no response. He gritted his teeth and raised his hand, and a huge spiritual tiger pounced at the pagoda door. Unexpectedly, the spiritual tiger was bounced back by the pagoda door. If not for Mountain Master He dodging in time, he might have been bitten back. Everyone could not help but frown when they saw the situation. This pagoda was really strange. It seemed that they still had to make a long-term plan. During this time, they had already arranged for disciples to find Jin Ji and Yi Bingyu, and had them use sound transmission talismans to contact Yun Chuzhou. However, the sound transmission talismans could not be sent out at all, and the identity jade plate did not respond. In the end, Master Bailey gave the order to have people guard the surroundings strictly, and to report any situation at any time. A certain Jiu, the troublemaker, had already slowly woken up at this time, and was somewhat dumbfounded when she saw the scene in front of her. She was currently in a huge stone room, and the surrounding stone walls were hung with corpses, lifelike corpses. A certain Jiu cursed in her heart. Fuck, why didn't I meet a large coffin or a dead person recently? Was he possessed? This guy was really bold. He walked over to the corpses and observed them carefully. Other than the lifeless corpses, they were no different from a living person. There were men and women, but most of them were middle-aged or old. The clothes on their bodies were in the style of the ancient times, and there was no uniform logo. It was obvious that they were not from the same family or sect. Yun Chuzhou originally planned to pick up the loot, but unfortunately, these people had nothing on their hands. They did not have storage rings, and their hair was disheveled. They did not even have hairpins. Fuck. Maybe they have already been robbed. Otherwise, how could there be nothing? This guy did not get a storage ring, so naturally, he could not determine the identity of these people. It was rare for this guy to have a shred of sympathy. It was quite pitiful for these people to hang around here. It was better to bring them out and find a place to bury them. Once they were buried, they could continue to enter the cycle of reincarnation. Thus, a certain Jiao removed the corpses from the wall and stored them into her storage ring. After a lot of work, she finally stored the corpses into her storage ring. Only then did this guy begin to carefully examine this stone room. The stone slabs and walls were all smooth bluestone slabs without any decorative patterns. Yun Chuzhou searched around but could not find an exit. It was as if the entire stone room was one. This guy had a big heart. He yawned and said, "I've been busy for half the night. Let's sleep first. There's nothing that can't be solved by a good night's sleep." Of course, this guy still let Xiao He out to be on guard and then fell into a deep sleep. The whole night was peaceful and nothing unusual happened. The entire stone room was so quiet that one could even hear a pin drop on the ground. Yun Chuzhou felt that since this was a tower, there must be a passage leading to another level. As long as one searched carefully, they would definitely be able to find it. It had to be said that this guy had the confidence of a mystery no matter what. After searching one round, he could not find it. He looked around again, but still could not find it. This fellow lost his patience and began to hack at the wall with a large kitchen knife. "Damn it, there is no door. I will hack a door out myself." A disciple responsible for guarding outside was surprised to find that the Black Tower actually trembled for a moment and immediately reported this news to the higher-ups. By the time everyone arrived, the Black Tower had already returned to normal. Therefore, everyone thought that the disciple was seeing things. He was really making a fuss out of nothing. A certain Jiao, who had built the gate in the Black Tower, had already been transported to a new level. A certain Jiao was proud. With a kitchen knife in hand, she had everything under the heavens. This level was still filled with corpses. A certain Jiao followed the principle of releasing a flock of sheep as well as a sheep, and put all the corpses into her storage ring. This fellow thought to himself, could it be that this Black Tower was a corpse-hiding tower? Who would be so bored as to put all the corpses into the tower and hang them? Was she crazy? After putting away the corpses, a certain Jiao did not find an exit. She took out a large kitchen knife again. Yes, she was building a door. The disciple in charge of guarding the tower was once again surprised to find that the Black Tower trembled and quickly reported this news to the higher-ups. Then, when everyone arrived, the Black Tower regained its calm. Mountain Master, he was so angry that he directly transferred the disciple who lied about the military intelligence away. Mountain Master, he had a very good reason. If his eyesight wasn't good, he wouldn't be in charge of the guard duty. A certain Jiao arrived at the third floor with only 2 strikes, and she still received a pile of corpses. This time, before Yun Chuzhou could start chopping, she had just taken out her kitchen knife when she was transported to the 4th floor. The 4th floor was still filled with corpses. A certain Jiao sighed as she collected the corpses. Damn it, she was clearly here to scam, how did she become a corpse collector now? Fortunately, the 5th floor was no longer a corpse, but to a certain Jiao, it was better to be a corpse. A demonic beast was staring at her like a tiger eyeing its prey. That demonic beast looked very similar to the bloodthirsty lion, the only difference was that this demonic beast had a horn on its head. Fuck, it was actually a 47th level golden-furred hoe. 47th level was equivalent to the 9th floor of the spiritual space realm for humans. Not to mention her, even if old man Bailey came, it would be a waste. That overlord beast speaks but doesn't act. It would be great to have friends come from afar. Why don't we have a good chat about life? No, Shousheng. Yun Chuzhou decided to hook up with him first. What if this Jin Maoho was more understanding? Jin Maoho rolled his eyes in disdain. Stupid human. Well, Lord Ho, are you hungry? I have all kinds of meat and vegetables here. I have everything, from flying in the sky, running on the ground, and swimming in the water. As long as you need it, I can give it to you. Jin Mao Ho ignored her and expressed its needs with practical actions. That was to eat her. Yun Chuzhou saw that her strategy of hooking up with him had failed and immediately shouted in exasperation, "Don't be so shameless. If you fight me head-on, who knows who will die?" Jin Mao Ho roared angrily. Its roar contained a huge pressure that could attack humans. It felt that once it cried out, that weak human chick would collapse to the ground. It might even bleed from its 7 orifices and die. Who would have thought that the human little girl would act as if nothing had happened and even throw a big bag of things at it? Jin Mao Ho used its claws to pull, and little Jiu's secret weapon, the chilly face, hit Jin Mao Ho's face. Jin Mao Ho was so hot that tears and tears flowed down its face as it roared furiously. Yun Chuzhou did not take the opportunity to attack Jin Mao Ho. She knew her own limits. Even if Jin Mao Ho's eyes were blinded by the chili noodles, her attack would not cause any substantial damage to it. Moreover, a certain Jiu knew that Jin Mao Ho's biggest attack method was to roar. Unfortunately, it was useless against her. She only needed to dodge its physical attacks. This guy began to chop the wall with a big kitchen knife. As he did so, he shouted, "Qi Ling, I'm warning you. Quickly let me out, or I'll build a door myself." This guy was very thorough. Jin Mao Ho must have been reared by the Qi Ling of the Black Tower or a formation beast. Rather than fighting with Jin Mao Ho, it was better to fight with the Qi Ling. The disciples who were on guard outside the formation were surprised to find that the Black Tower trembled a little. The disciple remembered what had happened before and endured it. He did not report it. If he was also labeled as having bad eyesight, it would be terrible. Jin Mao Ho's tears flowed all over the floor and finally eased the discomfort in his eyes. He stared at Yun Chuzhou who was building the door with his bloodshot eyes. "Look at the hidden weapon," Yun Chuzhou said and threw something at Jin Mao Ho. Jin Mao Ho thought that Yun Chuzhou was throwing chili noodles this time and jumped to the side in fright. Then, he heard the human girl giggle. "You idiot! I threw flour. You are even afraid of flour. It's really a small flower." Jin Mao Ho roared in anger, but it was useless to Yun Chuzhou. "You'd better save your strength. No matter how loud you shout, it's useless to me. Get lost. I'm going to build a door." Yun Chuzhou waved her claws in disgust. Jin Mao Ho was so angry that his hair was standing on end. With a roar, he pounced on Yun Chuzhou again. "Look at the hidden weapon." Jin Mao Ho thought to himself that this little ant must be lying to him again, so he used his claws to slap it. Yes, he was once again smacked by the chilly face. Jin Mao Ho, who was covered in tears, once again heard the little girl's arrogant laughter. "Emma, this is the first time I've met a demon beast as stupid as you. Fuck, it was simply impossible to guard against." Yun Chuzhou took advantage of Jin Mao Ho's snot and tears to continue building the door. The disciple in charge of guarding outside the forbidden area noticed that the Black Tower was trembling again. This time, he was careful and called all the people in charge of guarding to look at it together. Everyone rubbed their eyes. Oh God, the Black Tower was really trembling. The leader quickly reported the news to the higher-ups. Soon, Master Bailey and the 6 Peak Masters rushed over. However, when they arrived, the Black Tower had already stopped trembling. This time, because many people had seen it, there was naturally no question of whether their eyesight was good or not. Mountain Master he touched his nose guiltily, as if he had wronged the previous disciple. Regarding the reason why the Black Tower was trembling, everyone guessed, Could it be that the Black Tower was going to sink into the ground again? As for Yun Chujio, they could basically determine that the little girl was already dead. However, this was all her own doing and could not be blamed on others. At this moment, a certain Jiao, who was playing tricks, was engaging in a prolonged battle with Jin Maoho. Jin Maoho had learned a lesson. No matter what Yun Chujio threw, it would dodge to avoid being fooled again. However, this way, its attack would be restricted. In addition, Yun Chujio was as slippery as a little loach, so it could not catch her at all. Hey! We can't continue like this. We won't be able to determine the winner in a short time. Don't you think this is a waste of your life? How about we decide the winner with one move? Yun Chujio said with a smile while dodging. Jin Maoho was already impatient. Hearing Yun Chujio's words, it stopped its attack and widened its eyes to listen to Yun Chujio's follow-up. Let's compete to see who can jump farther. If you can't jump as far as I can, you'd better stay at the side obediently and don't disturb me while I'm building the door. If I can't jump as far as you can, I'll let you eat me obediently. How about it? Do you dare? Jin Maoho curled its lips in disdain. It didn't dare. Could it be that its 4 legs couldn't jump over her 2 legs? Alright, since you agree, let's begin. You won't go back on your word, right? Jin Maoho growled in disdain. Apparently, he felt that Yun Chujio's question was simply insulting him. Alright, then I'll jump. Watch carefully. Yun Chujio drew a line on the ground and then leaped lightly, jumping about 30 feet. Jin Maoho simply scoffed. This little noob jumped so close, and she actually had the nerve to compete with it. Even with half of its strength, it could jump farther than her. Jin Maoho raised its neck and was about to walk to the starting point of Yun Chujio's jump when Yun Chujio said, "Hey! Do you dare to jump somewhere else?" Jin Maoho growled in disdain. Wherever it jumped, it could beat that little human weakling. Then, it saw that little human weakling draw a line 1 foot away from the wall. "Hey, you jump! Jump in the direction of the wall." Jin Maoho. Then, she began to jump up and down to cut the walls. "Qi Ling of the Black Heart Liver, I'm warning you. If you don't let me out, I'll chop this place into a hornet's nest. I'll let you have a good ventilation everywhere." The people outside the Black Tower noticed that the Black Tower seemed to be having a seizure, and it was trembling non-stop. Damn, it seemed like the Black Tower wasn't going back underground, it seemed like it was going to collapse. Could it be that it had been in disrepair for a long time? At this moment, the Black Tower stopped trembling. The reason was very simple. A certain Jiao, who was chopping the wall, had been teleported to the 7th floor. This fellow was extremely proud in her heart. With a large kitchen knife, she was invincible. If she had known that the big kitchen knife was so good, she wouldn't have suffered so much. Obviously, this guy was too proud. When she regained her sight, she found that everything was pitch black. She quickly took out the luminous pearl to illuminate the area. This guy was really shocked when he saw the scene in front of him. If this guy wasn't so bold, he would have already fainted. The scene before her eyes was clearly the legendary Hell's Palace. The surroundings were filled with screams of agony, wails of oil, heart gouging, and dismembering. All in all, it was a cruel torture that was unbearable to look at. Those little ghosts were all strangely shaped. They had green faces and fangs, and they had blood-red tongues sticking out. It was extremely terrifying. Before Yun Chujio could finish her observation, she felt that she was being held down by someone. She wanted to break free, but she could not. It was as if all the spirit energy and strength in her body had disappeared. At this moment, there was suddenly light in the room, but it was flickering, making it even more eerie and terrifying. She turned her head and looked. To her left was a ghost with a bull's head, and to her right was a ghost with a horse's face. Was this the legendary bull's head and horse's face? Just as Yun Chujio was thinking about it, her body was forcefully brought to the front of a desk. A fierce-looking man with a full beard glared at her fiercely. Yun Chujio. Now that your life is over, that's why you came to the netherworld. You committed a lot of sins when you were alive, so from now on, you will have to endure the torture of the 18 levels of hell endlessly. The man said fiercely. Yun Chujio blinked her eyes. From what you said, you are the king of hell. That's right, it's me. Take him away and be tortured. The king of hell said impatiently. Wait. Shouldn't the king of hell have a judge? Shouldn't he tell me the time, name, and process of all the people I've killed? You want me to receive the punishment just like that? Isn't that too against the procedure? I'll die at least once, so let me see the whole process. This isn't the fake king of hell, is it? Yun Chujio said with a face full of regret. Hell's king was dumbfounded. You're already a ghost, why are you still asking for the complete set of procedures? You're simply sick. Since you want to see the complete set of procedures, this king will satisfy you. However, the judge happened to be out on an errand, so you can wait here first. Look at the fate of these cultivators. Hell's king's eyes flickered for a moment, he said coldly. Okay, no problem. I love to see people being tortured. It's best to make their screams louder. I always feel that their screams are not so sincere. Yun Chujio said excitedly. King Yama felt very tired. How could there be such a pervert? Normally, when they saw such a horrifying scene of torture, shouldn't they be trembling in fear? Hey, that kid who fried people in the frying pan. Right, I'm talking about you. You should at least take off his clothes and throw them inside. If his clothes have heat insulation, wouldn't your efforts be in vain? Also, that one who was cut into 1,000 pieces, the knife you're holding is too big, right? I reckon that the person who can't be cut into 1,000 pieces will only be a skeleton. Hurry up and change to a small knife. The one who dug out the heart, I'm too embarrassed to scold you. Before you became a ghost, didn't you not even kill a chicken? Don't you know how fast, accurate, and ruthless you are? You're so hesitant and dilly-dallying, I really can't stand watching you. King of Hell looked at Yun Chujio who was chattering away in a daze. Why did he feel that this little girl was more suitable to be King of Hell than him? Oh, King of Hell, let's talk about it. I see that your underlings are not very familiar with the business. How about I help you train? Of course, I can't train for nothing. You should at least pay me some compensation. Oh right, what is the currency of the underworld? Is it the underworld currency? Although Yun Chujio could not move her body, her vivid facial expression was enough to represent her greedy face. The King of Hell did not want to speak, nor did he want to listen to the little girl's chatter. Hence, he waved his hand and Yun Chujio could not move except for her eyeballs. The King of Hell suddenly felt that the entire underworld had become quiet. He let out a long breath. This was the familiar smell. However, he still felt that his heart was stifled. Why was that little girl not afraid? This didn't make sense. Yama frowned and thought for a moment. It must be because this little girl wasn't tortured, so she wasn't afraid. After a while, a judge-like person walked in. Yama waved his hand, and Yun Chujio regained her ability to speak. Yama patted the startled wood on the table. Ox head, horse face, bring the new ghost Yun Chujio over. The judge will read out her sins. Yun Chujio was brought to the front of the table. The judge took out the life and death book and read out without any fluctuation in his tone, Yun Chujio, due to the heavy sins of killing, my life has come to an end. Hey! Old judge, don't say these useless things. I have become a ghost, so I naturally know that I am dead. Tell me what sins I have committed. Who have I killed, when and where? And why did I kill them? The judge's face stiffened. Old man. He was only middle-aged, all right. The judge raised his right hand, and a 3-foot-tall sin book appeared in his arms. The judge's eyes twitched violently. If he finished reading, would he die of exhaustion from foaming at the mouth? A certain Jio said with anticipation, Old judge, read it. You're not thinking of slacking off, are you? Which judge doesn't read the sin words? You're not a fake judge, are you? The judge glanced at Yama, but Yama didn't say anything. He had no choice but to pick up the book of sin and read it. What he read was that his mouth was dry. How could this damn Yun Chujio kill so many people? Wait a minute. Yun Chujio suddenly interrupted the judge. The judge heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. This little girl was probably tired of listening to it. He could finally be liberated. Unexpectedly, Yun Chujio bared her little white teeth. Well, what do you people in the Hades usually eat? Get me a serving. I'm so hungry that I don't want anything else. Shut up. Continue reading. King of Hell was so angry that he almost threw the wooden stick in Yun Chujio's face. You're here to die. You're not here to sightsee. You still want to eat? Eat what? The judge had no choice but to continue reading sadly. A certain Jio would ask about some details from time to time, for example, wait a minute, why don't I remember killing this person? How did I kill him? Who else was there when I killed him? Wait a minute, when I killed this person, what color of clothes did I wear? What style of hairpin was on my head? Hey, how many did I kill? What 102nd? That can't be right. Why do I remember that it was 101? You can't give me too many calculations, you can read it again. Finally, the judge spat out white foam and fainted. TSK TSK, King of Hell. How do you think you became King of Hell? The little brat under you is not familiar with the business. If you get a judge to read a book of sins, you can even make yourself faint. I think this hell of yours is probably ghostly. Yun Chujio said with disdain. King of Hell was so angry that he was twitching. He shouted, don't bother about the book of sins. Bring her over and torture her directly. Pick the most powerful one first. Use that one to fry. Wait, I have something to say. King of Hell saw that Yun Chujio had something to say and felt that she must be afraid. He said proudly, what do you want to say? Beg for mercy? No way. Beg your head. You dare to play tricks in front of me? Bullshit hell. Is this how it works in hell? Just put on a show. Yama, look, your crown is upside down. Yama subconsciously touched the beaded curtain of the crown and realized that it was not upside down. He suddenly realized that he had been fooled. You want to lie to me in a small illusion? I have never been to the netherworld, so I'm just playing with you. Now I'm not in the mood to play with you. Get lost. Yun Chujio said coldly. As she spoke, the netherworld in front of her suddenly disappeared. At this time, she was still in a stone room. Yun Chujio took out a large kitchen knife and gestured in the air. Qi Ling, don't bother. Even if you get me to the 8th and 9th levels, I'm not afraid of you. Other than demonic beasts, illusions, and wind blades, what else do you have? If you know what's good for you, then quickly release me. Otherwise, it'll turn your black tower into a hornet's nest. Yun Chujio faintly heard a disdainful snort and was then transported to the 8th level. Yun Chujio opened her eyes and saw countless remnant souls baring their fangs and brandishing their claws as they pounced on her. Not only was Yun Chujio not afraid, she even laughed so hard that she fell backwards. Qi Ling, is your brain damaged? You actually used remnant souls to deal with me? Ha ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. Damn, I never knew there was such a stupid Qi Ling. Don't tell me you don't have a brain at all. Yun Chujio held up her spiritual energy cover and laughed heartily. Qi Ling, who was hiding somewhere, felt that this guy was most likely sick. What was wrong with remnant souls? Remnant souls were also very powerful, okay? Moreover, these remnant souls are the remnant souls of ancient cultivators, and there are many of them. It's simply too easy to kill you. Laugh. Laugh. In a moment, you won't even be able to cry. At this moment, the little girl took out a jade bottle from her storage ring. It seemed to be an ancient green jade. How could she have an ancient green jade porcelain bottle? Just as the weapon spirit was puzzled, it saw the little girl open the bottle cork. Whoosh, 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 several remnant souls floated out. Then, the little girl took out another jade bottle, and countless remnant souls floated out of it. The weapon spirit watched helplessly as the remnant souls released by the little girl were twice as many as what it had produced. Fuck, there was no way to live. Where did this monster come from? It was fine that she had a broken kitchen knife in her hand, but she actually had a remnant soul. How could she have a remnant soul? Moreover, it was the remnant soul of an ancient cultivator. Yun Chujio did not care what the weapon spirit was thinking. With a wave of her hand, the remnant souls of both parties clashed together. Yun Chujio sneakily attacked from the side from time to time and kept persuading them to surrender. Hey, I say that you remnant souls should quickly surrender. Do you see my friends? They are so comfortable following me outside, but you can only stay here. Don't you feel aggrieved? The colorful world outside is waving at you, and the girls and boys outside are smiling at you. Come into my bottle quickly. This is the best place for you. Although those remnant souls were a little muddle-headed at the beginning, they became clear-headed as they fought with their spiritual senses. When they heard Yun Chujio's words, they could not help but be tempted. Who would be willing to be enslaved by the tool spirit in this black tower? Since those remnant souls could go outside, why couldn't they? Qi Ling could feel the thoughts of those remnant souls and almost vomited blood. If it didn't put those remnant souls away, it was afraid that it would be kidnapped by this damn little girl. Qi Ling had no choice but to put away the remnant souls. Seeing this, Yun Chujio also put away the remnant souls and said with her hands on her waist, Qi Ling, how is it? What other tricks do you have? Quickly let me go. Or else, they'll have to build a door again. Qi Ling counted with its fingers. It seemed that there was really nothing that could deal with this abnormal thing. Oh right, it was still poisonous. Poison this stupid girl to death. Therefore, Yun Chujio was teleported to the 9th floor and thrown into a bubbling poisonous spring. Yun Chujio did not do anything, and she almost laughed at the Guai Chao in her dantian. Ever since the last incident, due to her guilty conscience, the Guai Chao had tucked its tail between its legs to make grass. Now that the food was in front of her, she naturally could not afford to keep a low profile anymore. She excitedly urged Yun Chujio to drink the poisonous spring. Yun Chujio knew that she could not beat Guai Chao, and she also wanted to anger the weapon spirit. Therefore, she took out a cup, filled it with water, and began to drink slowly. Weapon spirit, although you are a black-hearted person, you did a good job. I was thirsty, so you made me such sweet spring water. Thank you. Qi Ling sat on the ground in disbelief. This pervert couldn't even poison the poisonous spring to death. No, impossible. It must be because she drank less, so the poisonous spring hadn't taken effect yet. As long as she drank a little more, she would definitely be poisoned to death. Definitely. Yun Chuzhou slowly drank a cup. Guai Chao was anxious. Why didn't she hurry up with the delicious food? What was she waiting for? Thus, the miserable Yun Chuzhou once again lost control of her body. Like a little toad, she lay in the poisonous spring and began to fill her stomach with water. At first, the weapon spirit was dancing with joy. Ha ha ha, that little girl must have been poisoned. That was why she lay in the poisonous spring. But, why was the water level of the poisonous spring continuously dropping? When the weapon spirit reacted, more than half of the poisonous spring had been drunk. It was so anxious that it could not hide anymore. It jumped out and shouted, You, get out of there. That is my poisonous spring. Yun Chuzhou, who had lost control of her body, curled her lips. It was easy to invite the gods, but difficult to send them away. Go Weiba would not give up until he had drunk the poisonous spring. When the weapon spirit saw that Yun Chuzhou did not respond, it became anxious. It rushed forward and tried to drag Yun Chuzhou out of the poisonous spring. In fact, it could have moved Yun Chuzhou to another layer. It was also worried about her. Guai Chao's mind was filled with nothing but food. Now that the weapon spirit had actually stopped it from drinking the poisonous spring, it was not willing to let it go. It directly pushed the weapon spirit into the poisonous spring as well. The miserable weapon spirit was actually poisoned by its own poisonous spring and fainted. Although it would not die, it would not wake up for a while. Guai Chao threw the weapon spirit far away and continued to drink the poisonous spring. Finally, he finished drinking the poisonous spring. Then, a wisp of light blue mist rose up. It was the mermaid man. Go Weiba. Hurry up and get back here. Yun Chuzhou was extremely excited when she saw that it was the mermaid man. Last time, the mermaid man had disappeared without saying anything. This time, she had to get to the bottom of it. Go Weiba was very satisfied and happily handed over the control of his body. Yun Chuzhou quickly said, Brother Merman, this is also a part of your soul, right? Where are the rest of your souls being held? They'll think of a way to help you release them. The merman's face was ashen but he could not say anything important. It was obvious that someone had placed a restriction on him. Yun Chuzhou saw that the merman was in so much pain, so she quickly said, If you can't say it, then don't say it. What did you tell me to be careful of last time? You have to be careful of Lon. Before the merman could say anything, his body faded again and then disappeared. Lon. Lon what? The name of a place or a person? Or the name of a force? Or was it something else? Or was it south? Difficult? Yun Chuzhou couldn't figure it out no matter how hard she tried. At this moment, the corpse-like Qi Ling came to life. Qi Ling threw herself in front of the poisonous spring and fainted again with a choking sound. Yun Chuzhou took out the 10,000-year-old black iron chain and tied up the miserable Qi Ling tightly. This Qi Ling looked like a human old man, but it was only 3 feet tall. Qi Ling opened her eyes again and found that she was tied up. She burst into tears. You damned girl! I'm the Qi Ling of the Shura prison. Many mighty figures died here in the past, but I didn't expect that I would be bullied so miserably by you. I was sleeping underground, but you woke me up with an explosion. It was fine if I woke up with an explosion. You even stole my corpse collection. Not only that, you even chopped my pagoda body into pieces. You also wanted to abduct my remnant soul. The most hateful thing is that you drank all of my Shura spring. How am I going to live in the future? Yun Chujio touched her nose. It sounded quite pitiful, however. Hey, Qi Ling, if you didn't bring me in, wouldn't there be so many things going on? So the main culprit is still you. This is called throwing a stone at your own feet. Yun Chujio's words were like a handful of salty salt sprinkled on the Qi Ling's wound. Qi Ling was sobbing so much that she was about to cramp up. Alright, we are all 1,000-year-old foxes. Let's not play ghost stories here. Tell me, will you let me out or not? If not, I will make my own door. Qi Ling saw that Yun Chujio took out a big kitchen knife again and said hurriedly, "Little girl, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. So, this kitchen knife of yours is the Xingtian godly axe, right? How did you get it?" "I took it from a kitchen casually." "Is this really the Heaven Punisher divine axe?" Qi Ling rolled her eyes. Didn't they say that the heavenly thunder spirit root was not tolerated by the heavenly Tao? Why did this little girl get the Heaven Punisher divine axe so easily? Although there were still a few divine weapons in the world, most of them were not divine weapons that could attack people. Many of them were existences like pagodas or cliffs, yet the Heaven Punisher divine axe was actually taken by her just like that. It was really unreasonable. Then, how did you get those remnant souls? Qi Ling asked, almost biting her back teeth. That's even simpler. Just like what you saw, I told them that the outside world was very exciting, and they followed me. Just now, if it wasn't for your quick action, your remnant souls would have followed me. Qi Ling choked and fainted again. She didn't want to hit others in the face. By saying that, she simply didn't want it to live anymore. Yun Chujio took out a basin of cold water and poured it on Qi Ling. Qi Ling, who had been drenched like a drowned rat, cried out again, "Stupid girl, do you know where this is? This is Azura prison. Azura prison, do you know? If this was in ancient times, even mighty figures would be afraid of this place, okay? How dare you treat me like this? You're not a human. You're just a pervert." Yun Chujio curled her lips in disdain. Azura prison? How dare you call this place Azura prison? Did I just barge into Azura prison? I didn't even put in any effort, alright? You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.